Bombers have continued to impress despite losses to the Pies and the Cats in recent weeks and are hoping to re-enter the top 8 with a win on the road. Their former skipper Dyson Heppel returns to the 22 alongside Alwyn Davey Jr, whilst the Power welcome back Tom Jonas and key forward Todd Marshall. There are no late changes. Francis Evans is the sub for the home side, John Menzies for the visitors. Aaron Bryans with you to call the action, and alongside me, as always, here at the Adelaide Oval is Neil Cross. Afternoon, Crossy.
Aaron, great to be here, although I must say, crowd slowly building, it must be said. There's no doubt about that, but for Port Adelaide, very important game. They've got some, what appears to be on paper, a good draw over the next month or so. They need to make the most of it, obviously. And they've certainly started, well, they started poorly and then all of a sudden they strung together this winning run and they just want to continue it. And the Bombers just need to find a way back.
Last time they won 5 in a row was the closing sequence to 2021. They made a prelim that year, so we'll wait and see if they can extend that with a win over the Bombers today. The fans are slowly making their way into the Adelaide Oval. The sun is out after a patch of rain earlier today. The reason that the crowd is a little low at the moment is a lot of them are stuck outside the Oval. There's been a crash up in North Adelaide, which meant that we were looking likely to be an expert down. But thankfully, we had one of the best runners in the game with us this afternoon. 5-time All-Australian Ebony Marinoff has raced through the Adelaide Oval and got her way to the commentary box. Welcome, Ebs.
No, it's great to be here. It looks like a nice day for footy as well. I think we'll hear a couple of weeks back. Port have seemed to got good weather for their Sundays, but no, a really important clash for both teams. I think during the week we're all speaking about how these teams will go. Will they make the 8 and are they really competitive? So I think it's going to be an awesome matchup today. We've got, Sam Draper in excellent form. Will be interesting to see how Teeple goes, but who'll have to, I guess, rub him around the contest and make it hard for him today.
That ruck battle certainly one to watch. Alongside Ebony Marinoff, Josh Franco, the All-Australian midfielder with us again. Josh, welcome.
Yep, thanks guys. It's terrific to be here. And just on the weather, I woke up this morning, went for a walk. I was in the shorts, the sun was out, and about 20 minutes later, absolutely bucketed with rain. But I had a look at the radar, looks pretty clear at the moment, so it should set us up for a pretty good contest here.
So what have you made of the Power so far, Josh? They're pretty versatile at the moment. Getting over St Kilda was a big achievement considering they have multiple ways to break down a team, and Port Adelaide seemed to have all the answers last week.
Look, they do, and it probably comes off the back of former captain Warren Treadrady's comments about 4 weeks ago when he said Ken Hinkley's position at Port Adelaide as head coach is untenable. Since then, they have been absolutely outstanding. And the stat which I read during the week, which I guess excites me the most, is they're the number 1 pressure team from rounds 4 to 7. Watching the game last week against St Kilda, they're absolutely unbelievable. And I do really like the addition of Travis Boak back in the middle of the ground. He was playing a little bit of wing. We know he was wounded early in the season. He's back in the middle and really setting the tone, which he did last week.
Ebbs, you know a bit about the pressure of being a young star. Jason On-Francis had an incredible game last week, and it feels like we're going to see greatness down the line, but clearly when he's at his best, he wins games for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that Ken Hinkley's getting around. I mean, you can really see that they love him and they love his energy he brings. And, as a young midfielder, it's hard. And I loved what Connor Rosie spoke about a couple of weeks ago. Connor Rosie has always been under the lights of Sam Walsh, and he's finally finding some form over the past couple of years, and he understands it. So I think that's really helpful for, like, Jason Horne-Francis to be around those players. Zach Butters was a high draft pick, and they're only really starting to find their feet, 2-3 years into the game. And he's in his second season. As you can imagine, the pressure of this kid, he's a number 1 draft pick last year. He comes home. God, it would be hard, but I think he's just taking it with his stride, and he knows and probably starting to understand it's not going to be him every week. Yep. But if he can have a couple of weeks, he's going to help this team make the 8 and hopefully go deep into the finals.
And I reckon the key word you use is kid. I think we keep forgetting that he's only 19 years old. And to come over here, obviously expectation, nationwide in terms of football and his ability. We've seen him start the season. He was impacting games sort of spasmodically, if you like. I thought last week he really set the tone. It was his best 4-quarter performance. And he's going to be a superstar if he's not sort of quite there just yet. But he's not far off it.
25 touches, 11 clearances, 10 coaches' votes in the win over St Kilda last week. For the Bombers, just quickly, Josh, we're a couple of minutes away from bounce down, but I'm not overly sold on them. Do you believe in the Bombers? They've had wins over the Hawks, the Suns and the Giants, which aren't really that great. The Melbourne one here is obviously the big one. Yep. Since then, they've been competitive against top sides like Collingwood and Geelong, but I don't think they've had a major kind of run where they've shown they can be
That's
contender.
fair. Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Aaron. And if you looked at the Anzac Day game against Collingwood a couple of weeks ago, they were almost 5 goals up at one point late in that third quarter and then got overrun, but Collingwood have a habit of doing that to sides. They play Geelong, who are back to their red-hot form, so that's a difficult challenge as well. I reckon we'll know more after this game today. Obviously, Port Adelaide, as we said, the last 4 wins that they've had on the trot, they've been outstanding, so a really good test for Essendon today. Having said that, having watched the way they play, and they do like to get the ball on the outside, I reckon they're susceptible, which I reckon was sort of shown up a little bit in that last quarter of the Anzac Day game against Collingwood, a little bit susceptible to pressure on the ball. So it'd be a really good battle. Port Adelaide's pressure, as we said, has been number 1 in the competition for the last 4 rounds. If you can apply enough heat to Essendon, I really do think they're vulnerable.
Well, they've been playing a bit more of an attacking style, and you find that high-pressure teams take that away from you. And, I mean, we speak about them having played Melbourne, Pies and Cats, who are probably arguably, the best top 3 formed sides. So it's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, I'm sure they'll take confidence that they've been in those last 3 games. Had a great win at Adelaide Oval against Melbourne a few weeks back. So maybe it'll be their time to really stick it up to one of the informed teams and get those 4 points.
The Bombers 6-6 at the Adelaide Oval, but they've lost the last 5 to Port Adelaide, so it's not a favourable matchup for them. A bit brisk out there. Some punters still making their way into the venue. Downstairs, the 5th member of our commentary team, Jack Paquette, is braving the conditions. Jack, what's it like at ground level?
Oh, good afternoon, Aaron. It's great to be here. It's actually not too cold down here at the moment. The wind isn't that strong, but there is a slight breeze going to be favouring the Bombers. Zach Merritt won the toss. Essendon's going to be kicking to the northern end, the scoreboard end of Adelaide Oval. As you said, not a huge crowd, slowly making their way in. How's this for starting bench for Port Adelaide? Zach Butters, Jeremy Finlayson, Ollie Wines, Dylan Williams. And we've wanted to see it. Jason Horne-Francis is lining up on Jake Stringer.
No late changes. It's Port Adelaide and Essendon on Grandstand AFL. Neil Cross to kick us off.
Expecting a major test for both sides. Let's see what unfolds. Out of the middle, it's Stringer for Essendon, off to Parrish. He's prolific out of the middle. Goes long with a kick towards McDonald. Tip and Woody Jonas had the better of him. Ball on the ground, just socket forward to Caldwell. Released a hand pass into space. And eventually, Port Adelaide get it outside defensive 50. Horne-Francis picks it up, dumped into the ground, right at centre half back. At the back end of the square for Port Adelaide, forces the ball up.
Early clearance for the Bombers. Tossed up Draper. Entangled with Teagle. Won it down straight to Merritt. He's wrapped up immediately. Ball won't go anywhere. Just inside the centre square at the moment. Horne-Francis matched up on Hobbs, the 2 youngsters. Draper wins it down straight to Merritt again. The skipper gives it to Parrish. Heads towards the scoreboard pocket. He put it in the path of Langford. Alia's on his tail. Wraps him up immediately. Langford goes to ground. Falls into the footy. Umpire will wait and call a ball up on the arc for Essendon.
Even interesting battle, I reckon, between Teagle and Draper. Draper's a very, very good ruckman in the competition. Teagle's still learning his trade. Needs to get some body, give his mids first look at the footy.
Draper brought it down, came to Parrish. Then he went off to Shield. Handball over the shoulder, was turned over straight away. A couple of handballs later, it comes to Bonner for Port Adelaide. Down the line, he goes to Powell Pepper. Got rid of his man illegally. So it'll be McGrath to take it. Quick hand pass off to Martin. Hugging the boundary line to Shield. Out there on the eastern side, Shield arcs around on the left foot. Sends it about 30 from goal. Finds Langford. Leading up on Alia and takes the mark 40 out, basically straight in front.
Just watching Alia then, just didn't get any body on him. Sort of that long 45-metre kick inside their forward 50, ended up taking an uncontested mark. Just needs to get some body on him, take his run, disrupt his fly at the footy.
So Kyle Langford, 12-5 on the season. In he comes, crosses 50, kicks straight, happy with it, off the boot, and why wouldn't he be? First of the afternoon, goes to the Bombers, their 100th goal for the season.
Well, they've been speaking about not putting Kyle Langford back, and I think he's kicked a few over the last couple of weeks. But we talk about the midfield battle today, and Dylan Shields had a great game last week. Love seeing Jake Stringer start at the centre bounce. Had a huge impact with 20-plus disposals last week, but as well as the 4 goals. So we'll see Connor Rosie and Jason Horne-Francis go up against pretty experienced heads in there.
The makeshift forward, Kyle Langford, in the absence of Peter Wright, seems to be working for the Bombers so far this season. And Sam Wiedemann, obviously a danger as well. having kicked 5 last week. So the Bombers on the board first, a couple of minutes in at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide chasing a 5th consecutive win. Essendon would enter the top 8 if they can get over the line this afternoon. Bounce favours Teakle, who sits underneath it, slaps it straight to Parrish, but it's recalled. It actually stayed in the centre circle. But the umpires decided we'll have another go. Tossed up by Jamie Broadbent. Draper wins it down this time, straight to Horne-Francis. Stringer wrapped him up, lost it to Drew. He can't control it against Parrish. Trying to wrench it away is Horne-Francis. It comes out in the end to Merritt. Gives it wide to Setterfield. Essendon get the clearance. Up to left half forward. Nice kick out in the path of Langford, leading out. Too far out to score. He'll look inside to the left forward pocket. Honours the lead of Wiedemann. Hits him on the chest, low to ground. Tight angle, 25 out.
Just got to say, we're only 2 or 3 minutes into the contest, I understand that, but I'm already a little bit worried about the Teakle v Draper matchup. Already 4-1 hit-outs, 3-1 clearances in favour of Essendon.
So Sam Wiedemann, 9-4 for the year, the former Demon. Right at home at the Bombers now, relishing in the opportunities. Still plenty of football to give as well at 25. Starts on the boundary line. Kick close to the man on the mark. He's done very well to thread the needle. And the Bombers have the first 2. 4 minutes in, Essendon 2 straight 12. Port Adelaide yet to score on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, and looking, going back to that matchup, obviously Teakle is a young and up-and-coming ruckman for Port Adelaide. Draper's a star of the competition and a really influential player. And we talk about the modern game and field position and how important clearances are. If you can't give your mids first look at the footy, it makes it really difficult, because if it ends up in your defensive half of the ground, it's hard to exit it, and it gives the opposition looks at goal, which currently Essendon are getting. So in terms of Teakle, what he needs to do is somehow again disrupt Draper's ability to get hand the ball, and obviously the ground level players for Port Adelaide need to get some strong body on them and almost read the hand of Draper instead of looking to read off Teakle. But concerning already for Port Adelaide.
Sam Draper, out of South Adelaide, the number 1 pick in the 2016 rookie draft, and again he gets it down, this time in the area of Parrish, who couldn't take control. Socket off the ground by Rosie, comes straight back to Setterfield, and he's set upon by Rosie for the tackle, and for the first time it's in the front half for Port Adelaide.
Razor Ray lofts it into the air. Teakle wins it down straight to Merritt. He fumbled. Horne-Francis drives his way through it and catches one high. Parrish stuck out an arm. Horne-Francis isn't happy about it either. The Hornets let him know. Gathers the footy, spears it inside 50 off a step. It was almost rushed, and he's given it straight to the former Crow in Jake Kelly, who marks in defensive 50 for the Bombers.
And the umpire's just telling Horne-Francis to settle down. I'm surprised they let him actually push his man to the ground, keep him down there and then run off.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the kick from Kelly out of defence is intercepted by Bergman with a good mark. He drives Port Adelaide back inside forward 50. Dixon the target. He's surrounded. Ball comes to ground. Setterfield is in there. He's got it, and he's also got plenty of company. So the umpire will ball it up 30 metres out, basically straight in front of the Port Adelaide attacking goal.
Dixon in front position wins it down. Straight to Parrish, though. He fumbled. Bounced off his knees. Marshall comes out. He can't gather. Boak in traffic did well. Side steps to Drew. Now Dixon turns straight into the Merritt tackle. Lost it to Butters. He's brought to ground. Still play continues. Boak throws it out to Drew. Finally, we get a whistle. We're about 35 out. Slight angle to the right. Still in Port Adelaide's attacking 50, who are yet to score. 2 goals down. Dixon wins it down. Straight to Powell-Pepper. Spins a 360, then gives it off to Rosie. His handball not clean, straight to Setterfield. Zert Thatcher thought he had more time. Rioli wraps him up, spills to Rosie, is snapped, sits up just inside the boundary line, and taken by Burne-Jones right on the behind post, left-hand side.
Almost say for the modern football, Ebony, these kicks, even though it sounds a bit crazy, aren't that difficult. They practice this at training so often. Just a matter of taking a couple of steps out.
Opens the angle, snaps from the boundary line, mesmerising. Burne-Jones makes it work off a step. Port Adelaide have their first. 1 straight 6, Essendon 2 straight 12. 7 minutes into the opening term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
Well, we've spoken a lot about Port Adelaide's versatility, and I've loved the move of Darcy Burne-Jones down the forward line. I mean, they've got Dylan Williams, who's playing that half-back role, and he probably didn't deserve to go out when he did, and Jonas, I guess, held his spot. But with him missing last week with suspension, Darcy Burne-Jones has stayed down forward. it's almost a little bit easier when you've played defence to be a forward, and he just stayed in the game. And an excellent finish for a defender, but like you said, Josh, many of those kicks at the end of training, and he's nailed that one through.
I remember Mark Williams, he'd see us come out when I was playing back in the early 2000s and say, don't kick him from the boundary, kick him from straight out in front. But these days, they all kick him from the boundary. And that's why that kick, as I said, even though it sounds a little bit ridiculous, is not that difficult to kick.
Well, they either kick them from the boundary or they kick it like they're on the boundary, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're at a 45-degree angle and they want to go around the body.
True.
We haven't missed any action because the bounce was astray. We get a recall. So it'll be Tinkle to go against Draper again, and Draper first hands on the ball to Stringer. Out of the middle they'll come. Down to half forward Setterfield with the mark. Setterfield backs up and wide. Not called play on. Now he is. Got a clean shot, 25 from goal, ball off hands, down to Shield. Slick hand pass, there's a goal, well snapped by Perkins. Oh, the Bombers efficient inside forward 50. And straight away out of the centre bounce, it helps when you go forward. Essendon 3 straight 18, Port Adelaide 1 goal straight. 6 after 9 minutes at the Adelaide Oval.
And once again, Draper having a real influence in the centre bounce. And I just watched the work of Ollie Wines on Stringer. I reckon if you're on Stringer in the centre bounce, he's only going to go one way. He's trying to read the tap of Draper. Ollie Wines just let that separation unfold. Didn't give him enough attention, got the hit. And again, another easy centre clearance for the Bombers to set up that scoring opportunity.
The text line, if you want to get in touch across the afternoon, 0437 774 774. A cheeky message from Nick from Bendigo who says, I'm surprised Essendon weren't favourites playing at their favourite home ground, the Adelaide Oval, undefeated there in 2023. They did have a big upset win just over a fortnight ago against the Demons, and they're up for the fight this afternoon. Clean bounce in the middle. Phillips now in there, slapped it straight into the path of Parrish, who was tackled immediately, didn't quite have control of the footy, and as a result, a holding free kick to go his way. Out of contract, Darcy Parrish will have plenty of suitors as he heads inside 50, floating across from the side. Teakle cuts it off for Port Adelaide in defensive 50.
So Tinkle takes his time.
Yeah,
now he's called to play on.
Don't think too much.
Didn't have too many options to think about. Goes out to this broadcast side of the ground. Premature leap, I think, by Redmond in the end was penalised. So it'll go to Bergman for Port Adelaide and right half back.
He's getting better and better, this bloke, isn't he? Bergman moved to half back.
Done a lot of work in the weight room in the off-season. Big long kick down to half forward. Good mark taken by Finlayson. He wants to play on. He pushed into the ruckman Phillips as he went past. The umpire wasn't having any of that. Kicks it into the forward pocket. Comes off hands straight down the front to Davey for Essendon and off to Merritt. He dribbles the ball along the sideline deliberately. It's going to come back in through Houston. Houston sends it 20 from goal. Comes off hands this time. McEntee almost had it. Marshall does have it. Got it to boot. Didn't go very far. Picked up again by McEntee with a snap in the tackle. Got ball to boot. And what a shootout we've got through the first 11 minutes of this game. It's Port Adelaide 2 goals straight 12. Essendon 3 goals straight 18. Your experts on Grandstand AFL, Ebony Marinoff and Josh Franco.
Well, McEntee's been a little surprise packet for Port Adelaide this year. He's probably one of those unsung heroes. I mean, they've got Pau Pepper, who's that small forward and crash and bash, but that's a beautiful crumb. He had 2 impacts of the footy, but his ability to, I guess, have those, Zach Butters is playing more midfield time. We've got Connor Rosie. It just allows those boys to play more midfield minutes as well as him hitting the scoreboard.
And I reckon another area for Port Adelaide today, and looking at Essendon's undersized defence, they've got at the moment Marshall, Dixon and Finlayson ahead of the footy. So again, that passage of play with Teakle and Finlayson just shows the ability of forwards that can take contested marks.
Bounce favours Phillips. He wins it down in the middle. Charging onto it, Butters almost brought down without it. Spills out to Parrish instead. Gathers for the Bombers and heads up to right half forward. McDonald, Tipperwoody the target. He'll gather on the bounce, trying to elude Jonas. Did very well. Almost bamboozled him. Back towards Perkins, spun in the tackle. Back to McDonald, Tipperwoody. Now after Hobbs, he dropped it in the Pau Pepper tackle. Should have been ball. Play continues close to the boundary line. Ripped away by Burton, who tumbles it up to centre wing. Heppel didn't know where it was going to fall, so he slaps it back to Ridley. Now Merritt inside for the Bombers. A nice kick to the centre circle. Spots Alwyn Davey Jr. He'll look on the 45 out to the western wing.
Finds Kelly. He decides to go straight away. Pushed as he kicked. Sent it wide. And McKenzie got it away from Wiedemann over the boundary line, the left forward pocket for the Bombers. They lead by 6 points. 3 goals plays 2 goals.
Great chase and pressure there from Finlayson for a big key forward. Super.
And that ball tossed back in. Tinkle from behind had the better of it. Tapped it down towards Horn Francis. Got a push. Umpire called play on. Bombers share the hand passes back to Hind. Now wide he goes with his hand pass to Setterfield off his non-preferred left foot. Inside forward 50 again they go. And umpire will come in. Thought might have slid below the knees that attempt to pick up the ball there from Hobbs. But umpire said no, let's throw it in the air again.
30 out for Essendon. Tap down to Drew. He missed his boot. Rolls towards McDonald, Tipperwoody. Gave it to Hobbs. He turned straight into the Horn Francis wall. He dropped it. Parrish now gets it out to Merritt. Threw it on the boot straight to Alia, who cuts it off low to ground in defensive 50 for the Power. Great to have you with us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the Listen app across the country. If you are just joining us, it's been goal for goal. Currently it's the Bombers by 6. Alia heads to the defensive edge of the square. Phillips should have taken it. Spilt down. Setterfield gets a clearing kick back inside the arc. McKenzie used the body. Disposed of Wiedemann with ease and takes the intercept for the Power. He'll head to the scoreboard pocket to Bonner. Parrish and Merritt with 7 touches already. We're 14 minutes into the opening term.
Bonner looking, peering, not finding anything. Now he decides to go short, and it was dangerous, as Josh Franco mentioned there. Came back to him, hand pass to Burton, then to Jonas. Wide he goes, off to Butters, got around 2, did really well as he turned inside. Now he goes long towards centre wing. Ridley got to it, surely was interfered with. Umpire said no, it fell for Finlayson. In the tackle, let it go. Picked up by Pal Pepper. He found a target. Now they'll go forward through Byrne-Jones. Long inside 50. Dixon being held. Umpire said no. Play on, it comes off the pack. Wines has got it. Hand pass to Byrne-Jones, misses it. And it's tumbled out by Phillips, and away go the Bombers.
Umpire went to ground as well, which is why you got the faint Bronx cheer. Redmond gathers, headed wide. Forward from Heppel to McDonald, Tipperwoody now inside to the square. Spots Martin all alone. Marks uncontested, turns and goes. Up towards left half forward for Essendon. Spots Langford all alone. They're out here. Over the top, charging onto it. Hind could have been an option. Instead, they'll go to the goal square and taken late. Gee, it was almost a mess there as Caldwell and Wiedemann collided in the air, but Caldwell has taken it. Tight angle in the left forward pocket, about 5 metres out.
Port Adelaide crowd not happy. I think they thought Dixon was pretty harshly done by in terms of that marking contest. I'd like to see the replay, but...
Yeah, I just saw that. There was a pretty clear hold to the leg there. It could have even almost been called a trip.
Caldwell snaps and curls it beautifully. Bombers back up by 12. 4 straight 24 to Port Adelaide's 2 straight 12 as we approach the 16-minute mark of the opening term on Grandstand AFL.
And we spoke about Port Adelaide's forward line, the advantage and the potential advantage they've got over Essendon in that they've got Dixon, they've got Marshall, they've also got Finlayson against the lesser and the not-so-tall Essendon defence. But the downside to that potentially is that you don't get enough pressure inside your forward 50 with those big fellas who can't get at the ball carrier quick enough. Dixon didn't get the free kick. It rebounded quickly. And that mark inside 50 for Essendon was unbelievable and a great finish.
That's that Bombers transition footy that they've been playing this year. It's fast, it's attacking, and they're backing in their key tool and to get it done. And Port are going to have to put pressure on that to stop that.
You line up the two sides and on average across the season 37 more uncontested possessions for Essendon than what Port's been having. So out of the middle they come again. It went to Stringer, he just had a fumble. Then he had to stand in the tackle, try to give it back to the man who gave it to him. Shield slapped it forward, did well. It's off to Martin, he breaks, he kicks to the top of 50 and Davey couldn't handle it. Coming through was Bergman off the ground, gets it to Butters. Inboard he goes with a hand pass to Byrne-Jones. They link up well forward to Finlayson. He drops it inside 50, missed his target, falls to the back. Ridley will pick it up, give it to Hind, and they'll get out of danger, the Bombers.
Numbers queuing up to exit defensive 50. Hepper will take it, then head to Kelly at left half back.
They butchered that. Port Adelaide had Marshall longer. I thought he was the option, but decided to hit the short 50-50 and missed the target.
Hawkins had a career-high 8 on Zirk Thatcher last week. They looked so undersized. I thought Dixon and Marshall may be able to capitalise, but not so far. Down the line goes Kelly to a pack off hands. McDonald and Woody keeps it in play. Little underground hand pass though. He's turned over straight to Williams. Now Burne-Jones spots a target all alone in 50 and heads that way. Hits Horne-Francis right forward pocket. 25 out.
I reckon Tippin Woody would like his time again with that ball that was really close to the boundary line. We understand that they are pretty hot on playing that deliberate out of bounds, but just needed to somehow get it over the boundary line to reset for a boundary throwing. Kept the ball alive, and now they're paying the price with a shot on goal to Horne-Francis.
Caught on the counter. Now Port Adelaide get a chance to make it 6 goal for goals between these two teams. Horne-Francis snaps off a step and doesn't really get the angle he wanted. It's a minor score on the right-hand side. The first blemish of the afternoon. 2-1-13 plays Essendon's 4 straight 24, approaching the 19-minute mark of the opening term.
Port Adelaide, or rather Essendon, quick to move it. They didn't waste any time at all. Now they've got it out on centre wing. It's in front of Martin, pushed away by Butters. Took it on the ground, hand passed it off. Houston takes his time, inboard. Good kick on the 45, found Marshall. He turns and swings and turns it over. Wasn't great. Zirk Thatcher picked it up. Now they share it through Hind and McGrath and Heppel and back to McGrath. He bounces inside defensive 50. Goes for the dart pass, almost found Perkins, couldn't quite. Off hands, Port Adelaide will come again. Butters inside 50 with his kick. Burne-Jones with a strong mark. In the forward pocket, 25 out.
That's a much better kick going inside forward 50. A couple of times Port Adelaide have just blazed away when they've actually had pretty good one-on-ones. But, God, Butters is a nice kick of the footy, and he hits Darcy Burne-Jones up, and he can have 2 1/4.
And probably to your comment earlier too, Ebony, this bloke Burne-Jones has been an absolute revelation ahead of the ball. Obviously, was an All-Australian halfback flanker, but his ability to hit the scoreboard and pressure the opposition when the ball's inside his forward 50 has been outstanding.
All-Australian and best and fairest 3 years ago, off the halfback flank. Kicked it like a halfback flanker straight across the goals.
Nails a snap and misses a drop punt. Put him back.
10 the margin in favour of the Bombers.
They'll head straight up to the broadcast wing. A booming kick that exits from Ridley all the way to the square. Bergman somehow in the pack reels it in. A former first-round pick who's certainly living up to the hype this season. Has Williams on the 45 if he wants. Instead, he'll go long. Runs around Caldwell on the mark. Low ball. Speared it towards Boak. He could have taken it straight through the hands. He gathers at the back. Gives it to Marshall. Sidesteps Perkins. Centres his kick to Rioli. Brilliant composure from Todd Marshall. And Junior Rioli has it straight in front, 20 out.
And probably going back to Bergman as well, he's potentially been the beneficiary of Amon going to Hawthorn, giving him more game time. And I guess traditionally he's been playing that wing role, but now has been moved to half-back. He's big, he's strong, he's really good overhead, and has really influenced games throughout the course of this early part of the season.
8 goals, 8 for the season, Junior Rioli. Leans back on the kick. That was a gimme. His afternoon, and Port Adelaide bring it back down to a 4-point game. Essendon 4 straight 24, the power 3-20. Time on in the first on Grandstand AFL. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
It's going to be an uncomfortable afternoon for Port Adelaide's Trent McKenzie. He copped some friendly fire from Miles Bergman a little bit earlier. He's come to the bench. He's very sore. He's been going on the bike. They've been trying to keep his legs and hips warm where he got crunched. He's going to give it a go and get back out there, but he looks very, very sore.
And I think if you're a young fella sitting at home watching this on TV and listening to ABC radio, you talk about composure with the ball, and Marshall there was absolutely outstanding. Didn't panic, didn't rush his disposal, was able to manoeuvre his way through traffic and then looked inside and a great cross to the middle of the ground for an uncontested mark.
So laid back, you expect him to have a chair out there, really.
Yep. But no, great composure.
So back in the middle we go. Bombers have been good out of the centre. They lead by 4 points again. They get the tap down. And it was Merritt who, not a good hand pass, just hand passed in hope. So did Rosie. Turned it over. Forward go the Bombers through Stringer. Into the forward pocket. Phillips threw a boot at it. Didn't get it. Langford threw it as he was tackled by Jonas, who receives the free kick in the right back pocket. And he's going to spread it to the scoreboard pocket. Wasn't a great kick. Oh, it just paid off. Burton took it on the run, down to centre wing, gave it to Rioli. Picked it up on the bounce, gave it to Boak by hand. Forward hand pass to Rosie. Boak runs on, takes it, chips it, wide. Dixon with the mark. Port Adelaide moving fast.
Left half forward, Dixon looks into the left forward pocket. He spots Pal Pepper. Brought to ground by Hine. Did very well to gather against the ball. Gave it to Davey Jr. Clearing kick works. Hits up Martin. Just right of centre half back. Low kick. Drilled into the centre square. Hits Caldwell. One of 4 former Giants out there today. Kick was dangerous. It set up in the air for Heppel. Back with the flight. McEntee brought it to ground. Battling for it, Wines. Merritt throws it out almost with a fist. In the path of Perkins, gives it off to Martin. Wheels around it, left half forward for Essendon. Back inside to Perkins, gets rid of McEntee. Kicks from 45, it starts left. Doesn't come back. Minor score for the Bombers. 4-1-25, Port Adelaide 3-2-20. 23 minutes into the opening term. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, Jack Paquetta with you. The text line 0437 774 774.
Aaron, just a couple of quick statistics too in terms of the stoppage work. The hit-outs at the moment are 12-4 in favour of Essendon. Also clearance is a bit of a worry for Port Adelaide, 10-3 in favour of the Bombers.
Houston short with the kick into Williams. Then sends it long. Comes off the pack. Shield was there to Merritt. And then wide they go with the kick from Heppel. After Perkins, one step, boom, inside 50, looking for Phillips. He brings it to ground. Ball hand pass from Langford across to McDonald, Tippenwoody. Top of the goal square. The Bombers have another one. Oh, their efficiency. Look at that. They've moved along to 6-1 now. No, 5-1. 5-1-31. Plays 3-2-20. And we've gone well into time on in this first quarter.
You speak about, I guess, what's happening in the middle of the ground. Essendon's ability to handball and execute around the stoppage is really hurting Port Adelaide, and we spoke about Port Adelaide having enormous pressure last week. They need to lift that pressure because Essendon are absolutely killing them around the football, and that's why they're getting first looks inside their forward 50. And Anthony Tippenwoody, Jonas has been standing here majority of the game, and he's already had 7 touches and, impacting around that forward half for Essendon.
And I think even on that example, just having a look at the replay, I think he was on Houston. Houston came across to air assist, didn't quite get it done. And then Tippenwoody almost found the ball on the outside, out the back, absolutely.
Bounce in the middle, Teakle wins it down straight to Parrish, who gives it back to Draper, can arch the back through the centre square, over the top to Hobbs, turns, runs to 40, on the right, heads for home, bang go the Bombers! Their 6th goal of the afternoon puts them up by a game-high 17 points.
Once again, the centre bounce and the clearance situation, I think it's at the point now where Teakle has had his colours lowered to Draper and Phillips. I think it's almost time that Charlie Dixon goes in there just to try to disrupt momentum of Essendon and the dominance they're having around the stoppages.
I also think it's the way Port Adelaide is setting up. They're actually allowing, Essendon midfielders just to read that ball from Draper, and he's executing, and that's first-hand look of what a centre bounce has got, and Hobbs had a beautiful finish. And again, Port Adelaide just not putting pressure on the ball carrier. Yeah,
and that's a really good point. As you said, in the centre bounce, it's almost like Port Adelaide mindset of the mids need to change, and it's just locked down and turn into a scramble rather than allowing that separation and easy clearances for the Bombers.
Here's Draper again. Beautiful tap down to Shield. And they'll get it through Parrish now, who received the hand pass from Hobbs that made him work. Boak did well to spoil it as it went towards Hind. He got it. 20-metre hand pass forward. Found Drew. And he gave it forward then to Junior Rioli. And leading out from full forward and unable to get it, but at least forcing the bounce up there. Horn Francis came late over his Essendon opponent. Forced it to ground. We'll get a ball up. About 30 out.
Dixon wins it down. Straight towards Hobbs, though. Check side clearance out towards the centre square. Should have been taken. Coming out to meet it. Put to ground instead. Port Adelaide now under pressure. Rosie did well as Bonner shepherded. He ran through, gathered in the centre square. Headed to the right forward pocket. A bit too high and wide for Marshall. Will take a bounce over the line. Be tossed back into play. Attacking 50. Riverbank stand end. They're down by 17 points. Time on in the first.
Just some of their entries inside 50 too. Just not ideal. Not giving their forwards a decent look at the footy, Port Adelaide.
Takeaway from the first quarter. Bombers are quick. Now here's Rioli off the ruck contest inside, and that was a beautiful weighted kick. And he found Finlayson on the lead. 40 metres out, just to the right.
And Crossy, when you talk about Essendon looking really quick, and you mentioned that statistic in terms of their average uncontested possessions, and Ebony mentioned it as well, their ability to use their hands around the scramble, and if you can't shut it down or your pressure's just marginally off, they will cut you up.
Finlayson has a chance to cut the margin back to 11 points. Number 11 for Port Adelaide comes in, sprays it out to the left and through for the minor score. So we'll go down to the boundary with the margin now 16 points in favour of the Bombers. Jack Buchetta.
We've seen a number of players slip over today, but it's actually perfect conditions out there. There was a shower about an hour before the game, but there's a light breeze that's drying off the grass as we spoke.
Out to the broadcast wing, the clearing kick from Redmond, only as far as Burton, who marks in the pack. Lowers the eyes, honours the lead, coming out from Marshall, but floating across. Setterfield knew exactly where he was headed. Steps off his line and called to play on, so he'll have to rush his exit. Back where it came from, Aaliyah. Muscling up against Langford, comes to ground. Aaliyah gathers for the power. Handball was poor, straight to Davey Jr. Now Hobbs wheels away from Bergman. Gave it off to Parrish. Put it in the path of Shield. He can't get there in time as it rolls over the boundary line in front of the benches. Essendon by 16 points. Still a couple of minutes left in the opening term.
Dylan Shield, one of the really quick players around the ball. 135 games with the Giants, All-Australian in 2017, traded in 2018 as the ball comes back into play. Boak was brilliant, gave it to Drew, wide to Rosie, bit of space to work with, and his kick inboard, found, no, not quite Finlayson, it bounced and Finlayson knocked it to Butters. Look away, hand pass found Burn-Jones, his kick to the top of the goals. Off hands it came to Dixon, gave it to Marshall, surrounded by three, got it out of there, but away it will come for Martin towards the boundary line, and he takes it over and the umpire says what? He says throw it in. He was under enormous pressure then and probably did tap it over the line, but the umpire was satisfied. Throw it in.
Again, that's just that pressure creating another opportunity to have a stoppage inside forward 50 from McIntyre.
Finlayson tried to take it out of the ruck, couldn't quite reel it in. Drew put his head over the footy, brought down by Merritt. Get a ball up. 30 outside angle to the left for Port Adelaide. Parrish and Merritt with 11 touches each in the opening term. Rosie with 8, the best for the power. Off the ruck contest, Butters charges through, loses it in the Parrish tackle. Drew gathers, gave it back to McEntee, popped it up, just the required 15. It hit Rioli in the hole, he's called to play on, so he snaps off a step towards home, and it's across the face for a minor score. Wonder if that was either touched or not the required distance there.
I think it was touched. Yep.
Minor score for Junior Rioli. 15-point game. Essendon up 6-1-37. Port Adelaide 3-4-22. 30 minutes into the opening term, and another dangerous exit from Redmond to Heppel.
Heppel flicked a hand pass off the ground to Burn-Jones. He tried his hardest, but Bombers come away again. It's with Martin. He's running towards centre wing. He goes down the line. Wiedemann gets a hand on it. Aaliyah was there. Wiedemann was held. So Wiedemann on the logo on centre wing can send the Bombers forward. Closing moments of this first quarter. Intercept mark taken well by Bergman at the back of the pack. Took it away from Stringer. His release ball was good to Boak. Forward hand pass found Bonner. Bonner changes the angle. Back to Marshall. At right half forward, Marshall inside 50 again. He tried to move that ball across his body. McGrath read it best, and the intercept for the Bombers. Timely as it was. As we close to quarter time. Impressive from the Bombers. Good start to the game. It's been free-flowing football. The Bombers 6-1-37. Port Adelaide 3-4-22.
Goal scorers at the first break, all individual for Essendon. Langdon, Caldwell, Hobbs, Wiedemann, Perkins and McDonald-Tippum-Woody. For the power, Rioli, Burn-Jones and McEntee. Essendon certainly up for the fight, goal for goal in that opening term. Plenty to play out here on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
ABC Listen. It's hard not to love Bluey, whatever your age. So here's your chance to take a deep dive behind the scenes.
We showed a whole game of cricket, just shots of seagulls and churches in Adelaide. The cricket commentator was voiced by Adam Hills, who's an Australian comedian. He actually came up with a lot of the little puns, and they were really quite funny, so we sort of slipped them in where we could.
The new podcast, Behind Bluey, only on the ABC Listen app. Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match. Search on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Martin hugging the boundary line to Shield out there on the eastern side. Shield arcs around on the left foot, sends it about 30 from goal, finds Langford leading up on Aaliyah and takes the mark 40 out, basically straight in front. So Kyle Langford, in he comes, crosses 50, kicks straight, happy with it, off the boot, and why wouldn't he be? Setterfield backs up and wide, not called play on, now he is. Got a clean shot, 25 from goal, ball off hands, down to Shield, slick hand pass, there's a goal, well snapped by Perkins. Houston sends it 20 from goal, comes off hands this time, McEntee almost had it, Marshall does have it, got it to boot, didn't go very far, picked up again by McEntee with a snap in the tackle. Perkins, one step, boom, inside 50, looking for Phillips. He brings it to ground, ball hand pass from Langford across to McDonald, Tippenwoody. Top of the goal square, the Bombers have another one.
Bounce in the middle, Teakle wins it down straight to Parrish, who gives it back to Draper, can arch the back through the centre square, over the top to Hobbs, turns, runs to 40, on the right, heads for home, bang go the Bombers!
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
End-to-end footy at the Adelaide Oval, but Essendon have the first victory at quarter time. They're up by 15 points. 6-1-37 plays Port Adelaide's 3-4-22. They're taking over in the middle as well with Sam Draper certainly capitalising on the young Bryn Teakle in the middle. Plenty of clearances for the Bombers. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff and Jack Paquette are with you for the call. It's a bit of an awkward Sunday. All three games overlap, so it's a little messy, but here's the state of play. If you are with us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital, or the extra button on the Listen app, we'll be with you, obviously, till the end of the game. Then we'll take you to Collingwood and Sydney, which does start our coverage at 2:50 Eastern Standard Time. You can hear that on the AFL button on the Listen app if you're not hearing it in your main state at the moment. North Melbourne and St Kilda at the Docklands starts at 4:10 Eastern. You can hear that on the extra buttons, so that will follow the conclusion of this game today. Josh, Ebbs, what did you make of that opening quarter?
Well, look, I thought it was a pretty entertaining first quarter. Essendon, as we spoke about throughout the call in that, I guess even the early stages of that quarter, they were dominating clearances and they were dominating the hit out, and they looked really proactive at the stoppage, and Port Adelaide really struggled in that space. And just looking at Josh Carr, who was talking to the Port Adelaide mids, looked like he was working overtime. And a couple of notes I've written down here in terms of the message to the Port Adelaide mids and the ruckman in terms of Teakle. One, initially give us a contest so you can at least harbour, not give Draper and Phillips first look, and get easy hand and direct the ball where they want it to go. But also the Port mids, and I think Ebony mentioned it as well throughout that first quarter, they've got to get some strong body on their opponent, and they need to work together to try to minimise the damage from those stoppages. So no doubt Port Adelaide, they would have talked about addressing that and hopefully rectifying that in the second quarter. But another area of the ground where Port Adelaide really struggled was their entries inside forward 50. They had really no system at all, and they didn't give their forwards a great look at entries coming in.
We speak about, Bombers being undermanned or undersized, but one thing they do really well across the defensive 50 is they read it. They've got Andrew McGrath, who just reads the play so excellently. Jake Kelly doesn't mind coming off his players, so they're actually going to have to lower their eyes, and it might take him another kick to get the shot on goal, but they're just blazing away, and there's probably a handful of missed opportunities just from blazing away inside forward 50. But one thing about the Port mids, I think they actually have to understand Teakle is a little bit inexperienced, so how can we help here? I love what Collingwood have done over the past couple of weeks, being Billy Fountain's gone in the ruck, and it's actually the ability of the midfielders to play off the other opposition's ruck, and they're actually going to have to help Teakle out here and get into the contest and put that pressure on, because Merritt and Darcy Parish are absolutely running around right at the moment, and it's probably because of the Port Adelaide's lack of pressure.
Yeah, I agree. And then when you look at having spent a fair bit of time as a player in the midfield, when you've got such a dominant ruckman, I was lucky to ruck to a Brendan Lade and Matty Promise, where you knew where the ball was going to go, so you could get proactive. Port Adelaide almost have to switch their mindset in that space and go, right, we're not going to win the hit. We understand we're undersized, or we've got an immature, inexperienced ruckman against some quality opposition. How can we maximise our ability to bring the ball into a scramble, pressure the opposition, so even if they win it, they're not clean entries out the front. They're sort of wide boundary where they can at least defend it.
Ken Hinkley hasn't been afraid to make quick changes this season, and one of their better quarters was against the Dogs when they decided to sub Scott Lycett and put Finlayson in the middle, and they dominated clearances with that almost extra midfielder. So we'll see what the state of play is downstairs. Francis Evans, their sub, obviously, but something needs to change. And At the moment, it is Teakle still starting in the ruck against Draper, with the Bombers up by 15 points. Second term coming your way on Grandstand AFL. Nice high bounce in the middle that Teakle does win. Straight to the toes of Merritt. Left it for Stringer. Then receives the footy. Gives it back to the package, who races through the centre circle. Up towards the 50 for the Bombers. Trying to pull it in with one arm. Langford has still got away from Aaliyah and McKenzie. And pulls it in. 35 out, slight angle to the left.
And without banging on about it, and we're not knocking a Teakle because he is young and inexperienced, it's almost at the point where the message should be actually hit it to where Draper's going to hit it, make it predictable for our ground level players and get your best players in the spot where it's going. And once again, another easy centre clearance for the Bombers, resulting in this scoring opportunity.
Carl Langford has the best of an All-Australian defender so far this afternoon, looking for his second. He'll kick from just inside the arc. Leans back, plenty of distance. Looks good. Great finish. Langford has two. They're going to score review this because there was a player on the goal line.
Actually, if I could interject here as well, and again, really poor from Port Adelaide not having their ruckman on the line, and that's just not on
It was
Teakle.
Dylan Williams, who's almost one of their undersized defenders, just waiting back.
And I'm tipping if the ruckman was down there, or Port Adelaide had representation from a tall.
What do we think,
Tipping he could
Josh
have
and
got a hand
Ebbs?
Where's the side on?
I feel like it's,
I think it's a goal.
potentially past the line. There you go.
Yep.
It all this when they go up to the arc, you almost don't know how to set. Langford doesn't know whether to celebrate because you just don't know these days.
Should you set up? Should you wait for a defensive kick in? It looks good. And the Bombers jag an early goal in the second term. Langford officially has two. They're seventh, 7-1-43. Port Adelaide 3-4-22. 2 minutes into the second term on Grandstand AFL.
Again, that's just Essendon's centre clearance work, and it's actually not only not looking good for the midfielders, but it puts the Port Adelaide defenders under immense pressure because they've just got this ball coming in and they're one-on-ones. They're hard to stop when you're playing back shoulder that Port Adelaide are playing most of the time.
Yep. And as we obviously know now, the 6-6-6 rule, you can't actually manipulate or manufacture it to get support back there. So that just highlights the importance of winning the centre bounce clearance.
He's had a good season, Langford. 14 goals as a third tallish player up forward for the Bombers. So here we go again. Port under pressure. Wasn't a great bounce. He's going to recall it.
Port Adelaide fans not liking Razor Ray's work thus far.
Neither am I. That's the third recall.
Yeah, I don't think he likes it either. So in the middle, it comes down. Stringer taps it forward, then boots it in the air. I don't think it went the distance. The umpire did, so it's a mark there, a chest mark in the end of Houston. Right at centre half back for Port Adelaide. Flares it wide to Williams, and they'll just take things slowly.
But Crossy, that was a better example of a pressured clearance rather than an unpressured clearance where your defenders are under the pump.
Williams now switches across half back, finds McKenzie. Dinks it up towards centre wing to Bonner. Over the top, they're moving nicely here, the power. Butters marks uncontested. In front of the Max Bashir stand, he tries to race around the man on the mark, gets a kick away up towards the 50. Packer waits, Marshall with the sit, couldn't bring it down. Brioli charging through, gathers. Caught in the tackle from McDonald, Tipperwoody, holding the footy. Free kick Essendon at left half back.
And this is where Port Adelaide have to be quick to number off. Don't allow easy uncontested marks coming out of their back 50.
They've done it pretty well. McDonald Tipperwoody goes to his left foot and sends it wide, looking for Stringer. It's punched to the front. It goes over the boundary line, so Port Adelaide keep it in the front half. We'll get that throw in at right half forward for the Bombers out in the eastern side of the Adelaide Oval.
Should mention, Crossy, as well, Ollie Wines only has one touch. Hasn't exactly been a great year for the former Brownlow medalist. He's almost lost in the shuffle of Port Adelaide mids. Off the ruck contest, spilled down to Butters, gave it to Teakle, then Bonner. Around the body, kicks into the scoreboard pocket, and Marshall, Superman dive forward, pulls it in.
I think also too, Aaron, just on, as you said, Ollie Wine's just the one disposal. He's probably one of these players which is paying the price for not having some ruck dominance, because as soon as the ball hits the ground, the fleet-footed Essendon midfielders have just got too much leg speed. Can't get his hands on the footy.
Marshall will start on the fence outside the 50, right forward pocket. Man on the mark, 45 out. This will make him work for his first of the afternoon. On return from concussion, Marshall skies it. It's curling back towards goal. Magnificent. Marshall's on the board. Port Adelaide answer back. The trend continues. Both sides finding majors across the afternoon, but it is Essendon up by 15 points once again. 7-1-43. Plays 4-4-28. 5 minutes into the second on Grandstand AFL.
That's a much better look going inside forward 50. It was another handball to Bonner that actually allowed him to straighten his body up and hit Marshall. I mean, Marshall had to run for it, but that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to put it out in front, let the forwards go to work, and an excellent finish from the boundary side. I want to touch on Ollie Wines only having one touch. As a midfielder, he's standing prior to that Darcy Parish. If you want to get yourself in the game, you go, I'm going to, stop his impact. I'm just going to get to work. I'm a contested beast. I'm going to beat him at the footy. So there's ways you can actually work around it and bring yourself into the game.
From the tap down in the middle, Butters got it. Flicked the hand past to Horn Francis. Weaves his way through a couple. Out in the logo on centre wing, he finds Bonner with the mark. Out on the eastern side, he goes down to Butters. Took the mark, hand pass off to Houston. He's running hard. He's inside 50 with his kick. Out comes, Dixon got mid-air, turned himself around, claimed he was taken. The umpire said no. Now the Bombers get around and force a ball up right at the top of the goal square.
Dixon will ruck up against Draper. Dixon wins it down in the path of Pepper. Missed him in the end. Tunnelled through. And Zach Thatcher does enough to knock it over the boundary line in the scoreboard pocket. Northern end of the moment for the Power. They lost the coin toss. Zach Merritt had to kick to that end. Cathedral, the hill fairly full this afternoon as the sun is out after some early showers. Dixon front position with the fist, close to the boundary line. Got it to Wines, spins around the tackler, back to Dixon. They retreat through Powell Pepper. Now Bonner tried to weave through traffic. Good smother. Diving across Thatcher, held it up. Pulled out late by Powell Pepper, but the whistle had already been blown. We'll get a ball up, 40 out, tight in the right forward pocket.
Ball goes in the air. Draper got the tap down. Dixon followed up as the ruckman for Port Adelaide. Got it to Bonner. Then he went back towards Butters. Just got away. Chips it into the pocket. Powell Pepper by himself. He's still 25 or so from goal. And on a pretty acute angle, he'll back up near the boundary line, if not over.
That is super leg drive from Zach Butters there. He almost probably could have gone himself, but just to lower his eyes and hit a forward closer to goals, even though it's a pretty tight angle for Powell Pepper.
Powell Pepper taking the maximum time before he starts his run in. He's going with a drop punt, and he looks to have hooked it, and he has just slightly for the minor score across the goal face. So Port Adelaide narrow the margin to 14 points. And we've travelled through 3.5 minutes of the second term at the Adelaide Oval on Grandstand AFL.
Port Adelaide, last 3 or 4 minutes, they've been able to dominate field position and looking to build pressure.
Redmond exits, close to the defensive arc, and a late bump will result in a 50-metre penalty against Burn-Jones. It was taken.
Tim, what that
Setterfield
does as well, Aaron, is that we just spoke about field position. Now they're looking to enter sort of inside their forward 50, so really, really dumb. So Burn-Jones.
Setterfield marched to the centre square, plays on, and on the 45 spots Merritt. True centre wing in front of the benches. They've slowed right down here, Essendon, after that gimme of momentum. Merritt will have to go long to a pack. Up at right half forward, Alear gets some free fly. Can't bring it down though. Perkins, hand pass forward. Wiedemann brought down in the tackle, dropped it. Play continues. Winds a little 1-2 with Williams, gets it back to him in the end and charging through his Boak. The veteran over the top to Marshall. Now through the logo to Burn-Jones. Trying to get it back to Boak, but was whacked heavily in the tackle. Horn Francis comes in with the assist and falls onto the footy. We'll get a ball up.
Probably not the best position, is it? Sitting under those high balls, knowing there's someone bearing down on you. Burn-Jones wrote it well.
Right near the interchange gates, Phillips out of the ruck for Essendon. Boak first to react, but too close to the boundary line. Davey takes him over, ball to be thrown in. So Bombers led by 15 at quarter time. It's a 14-point game at the moment in favour of the Bombers. Ball flicked back into play. Phillips with a good tap down to Davey. Low hand pass. Horn-Francis got a boot to the ball. Then he received a hand pass from Williams. Into the middle he goes to Drew, and then he goes out with his kick. And Hine comes the other way, opposed to Bonner. He's 2-on-1 in favour of the Port Adelaide. They get it away. It's tapped towards Bonner. Inside 50 he goes. Finlayson got rid of his man, took the mark. Ridley was complaining that he was pushed away in the face, but the mark was paid, and Ridley stands there 40 from goal.
And a good entry there from Port Adelaide. Just kicked it to the advantage of Finlayson. And as we said, they've got the tall timber up there today. Give your forwards a chance to get to work.
So in comes Finlayson. Crosses the 50. Sends it straight. No. Just away for the minor score. He was about to go up and then paused. Port Adelaide just having a few yips in front of goal. They got 4:6:30 on the board. Essendon 7:1:43. And we're 10 minutes into the second term.
Chipping away at the margin. Redmond now, the Glenelg product, heads up towards left half back. Off the pack, spills down to McEntee. Little 1-2 with Bonner. Wheels at the attacking edge into the 50. Great kick to Burne-Jones, who fumbled on the third bite. He just couldn't get it in. Draper forcing it forward. Alia's waiting. He's bumped off it by Hobbs. Coming through McEntee for the power. Back out wide to Rosie. Jed McEntee. Some great footy at the moment. Rosie now around the body, ran out of room and just kicked in hope into the 50. 3 Bombers underneath it. Redmond takes it and now looks to switch.
Does so successful. Zerk Thatcher stands under it, forced back. Decides to hold it up. It's good from Dixon, got across there. Now Zerk Thatcher called to play on. Down the line he comes on this broadcast side and sneaking across. Horn-Francis takes the mark at the front of the pack, read it quickly. Now he holds up. All of a sudden the game's a bit stop-start. Goes with a pass down the line. Behind play, Ridley's gone down. That was a clash with Finlayson as they tried to get position for this ball. Kelly hard against the boundary line for the Bombers. Down the line he goes on the broadcast side. McDonald, Tip and Woody. Change of angles. Inside to Davey. They've got runners, the Bombers. Davey looks around and decides, where will I go? There's so many choices.
Ridley still down behind players. Essendon head through the broadcast wing. Hobbs now has it. Inside his kick, finds Phillips. Attacking edge of the square. Ridley now being escorted off by a couple of trainers. We'll head down to Jack in a moment. Phillips heads inside 50. Wiedemann got away from McKenzie. Both hands out in front. Takes the uncontested grab. He's 40 out. 45-degree angle to the right.
And I dare say, I'm not sure that's part of Essendon's game plan, is getting the ruckman in the 45, but Phillips was outstanding there. Presented, they took the risk, they got the advantage from it. And a brilliant kick inside 450 from the ruckman. Simon Wiedemann.
Sam Wiedemann had 5 goals last week. This will be for 2 in the second term. Boots across the paint of 50. Beautiful kick, never in doubt. Straight as an arrow. And Wiedemann has 2. They punish Port Adelaide's inaccuracy. Essendon up to 8:1:49. The power 4:6:30. 13 minutes into the second term. Let's check in with Jack Paqueta downstairs.
Jordan Ridley's made his way off the ground and is on the bench now, talking to the doctors about his left jaw, left ear area after that clash with Jeremy Finlayson. So maybe he copped a knock in that marking contest.
As we said up here in the commentary box, there's been a bit of a shift in how the game's been played. It has been played in Port Adelaide's front half. They were able to build pressure, and the inside 50s this quarter are 7-2 in favour of Port Adelaide. 7-3 now, I beg your pardon. But as you said, Aaron, inaccuracy, unable to capitalise, and that's when you do have field position, you're dominating play, you've got to cash in and hit the scoreboard. Port Adelaide unable to do that, and now the margin opens up again to 19 points.
Just had a look at the replay on what happened with Ridley, and it was Junior Rioli coming across, euphemistically giving a block. He actually jumped in the air, and he might be in a little bit of trouble about that particular clash as Port Adelaide take the ball away from the centre and out wide. Hine got into the back of Butters, I thought. No, said the umpire. Ball travelled over Butters' head and across the boundary line.
Port Adelaide fans not happy. I reckon they've got reason to be a little bit disappointed in that non-decision from the umpire.
Out in force this afternoon to kickstart the Sunday triple header. Still to come, Collingwood, Sydney and North Melbourne, St Kilda. Toss back in. Phillips wins it down. Rosie charged onto it. Merritt brought him down before he could get a disposal away. Drew to Houston. Tumbles the footy in the scoreboard pocket. A little too wide for Pau Pepper. and rolls over the boundary line. It's Essendon by 19 points. 15 minutes in, 8:149 plays 4:6:30. The text line 0437 774 774. Great to have you with us on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the Listen app.
So Port Adelaide in their attacking 50. They need to make the most of it. Essendon's been running a merry dance in their attacking 50. So off the ruck contest, Charlie Dixon forced to surrender the ball. Gave it to the umpire. Quick word. Maybe I can get a free kick here. Tries to hold off Phillips, who had the better of him. It went down to Parrish. He ran into his own man, forced to release the ball. Now it's a scramble. Zirk Thatcher just gets a toe to the ball. Clears it away, but only so far as Burton. Hand pass forward for Port Adelaide to Rioli. Into the forward pocket he goes. Redmond leads up and takes the mark ahead of Pal Pepper. Now switches to Zirk Thatcher, and they'll come out this broadcast side effectively and find Kelly with the mark just outside defensive 50.
They switched fast, but Port Adelaide's defence knew it was coming and they've zoned off ahead of the footy. So a long ball up to the logo now. Aaliyah bumps off McDonald, Tip and Woody. Jonas flew as well but couldn't reel it in. Spilled to Martin for the Bombers. Hands it back to Heppel. Now Perkins in a bit of trouble. Wines charged him down and wrapped him up. Ball up to come just behind left half forward for the Power. 19-point lead to the Bombers. Razor Ray tosses it into the air. Phillips takes it out of the ruck but fumbled against Finlayson. Coming through with the assist, Caldwell handed it straight off Houston's chest. Ricochets around almost like a pinball. Boak did well, tapped it out to Butters. He's mauled by 3 and dropped the footy. Rosie came in. He's spun and handballed backwards in the end. On the logo, Wines gathers, gives it back to Bergman. Finally some space, but the kick is poor. Rushed around the body. Bombers sitting back, and Langford takes it for Essendon.
Backs up, looks inside. Nothing much on offer. Umpire calls him to play on. Down the line and high with the kick. Oh, Shield turned his back to the ball thinking it was going well over his head, and his opponent, Bergman, stepped in front, took an easy mark. He goes wide, misses Wines, and the ball goes into the interchange area to be thrown in. Gee,
That was
forgetful 15 or 20 seconds, I would have thought.
absolutely.
Bombers certainly looking the more efficient of the two teams this afternoon. Close game at the Adelaide Oval. Toss back in, Phillips front position. Won it down looking for Caldwell. Gathered by Drew though. Threw it towards the attacking 50. Dixon overran it. Spilled to Heppel. Out wide to Langford. Now the Bombers are surging. Hind. Out towards Zirk Thatcher. His handball a little poor. He put it in the path of Shield, but Houston was there and ready. Didn't have as much time as he thought. Had Martin on his tail, but did well to get it to Williams. Now out wide to Butters. Tackled as he kicked it. Redmond's waiting at the back. Hands it off to Shield. He's in a bit of space now on the eastern side. Over the top through centre wing. He gives it off. Dinked forward. Nice little kick up towards Wiedemann. Off the bootlaces of Kelly, but he can't control it against Aaliyah. Boundary throwing to come left half forward for the Bombers, leading by 19 points at the moment in the second term as we approach time on.
Tip and Woody outstanding, wasn't he, with Butters? Just applied enough pressure to affect the kick, caused the turnover.
Bit more cloud cover coming across. Maybe a suspicion of rain. That might slow down the Bombers and help the Power at the moment. Ball comes off hands, and the ruck contest eventually to Hobbs. Knocked it out into space. Parrish came in, tried to get it, tried to release it out the back. Butters got to it. Takes one bounce down the wing. Pal Pepper, by the way, involved in a bit of a scrimmage off the ball. Inside forward 50. Finlayson couldn't take it. Knocked it wide for Burn-Jones. Lowered the shoulder and got taken high. Crowd not happy. Martin was the offender, and there's 50 going to be added to it. This will be a goal for Port Adelaide. Few afters going on still, but Burn-Jones will have a shot from the top of the goal square. In he comes. Port Adelaide get a badly needed one. So 19 minutes down in the second term. Port Adelaide 5-6-36, trailing Essendon 8-1-49 on ABC Grandstand. Let's go to Jack Burketta on the boundary.
Jordan Ridley's gone down to the rooms to be checked out under the concussion protocol. Jai Menzies, the sub, is warming up, and the Bombers in the meantime have sent Will Setterfield back to be the spare man back in defence.
We're just having a look at the replay. Burn-Jones, I thought, did it pretty well actually. It was almost one of those, ducked his head, lifted the shoulder up and got the old-fashioned coat hanger. but I'm not sure what the 50 metre would take.
I'm interested to see what the...
For the afters. Martin coming in.
He did.
Falls on him. And with maybe a little bit of contact to the upper body.
Yep.
There you go, Crossy. Good eyes there. But much better transition footy from Port Adelaide. They were actually able to, catch Bombers' defence offline.
Bombers by 13. Phillips wins it down to Shield. Got boot to ball as he spun 360. It's set up for Houston. Maybe brought down without it. Won't matter. Rosie gathers with the assist and gives it out to Burton. Puts it in the path of Boak. Port Adelaide now surging through the eastern wing. Boak spears it into the scoreboard pocket to Dixon. The power's on at the Adelaide Oval. It's felt like Essendon's quarter, but they haven't quite put it to bed. And now Port Adelaide are coming. Charlie Dixon, set shot to come. 40 out, tight angle to the right.
We spoke about that at quarter time. Port Adelaide's entry inside forward 50 had been a little bit haphazard, not really giving their forwards a decent look at the footy, but they've definitely addressed that at quarter time. Some of their entries really good. As we said, now needs to capitalise and hit the scoreboard.
Dixon kicks from 45, plenty on it. It's across the face, minor score. Essendon's lead reduced to 12. 8-1-49 plays 5-7-37 time on in the second term. One of our listeners on the text line says rain is coming. Let us know where you're texting in from, and if you are getting some rain at the moment, give us a little bit of a preview of what's to come. Essendon surging up to the broadcast wing.
Comes off the pack with a little hand pass out wide, and then Williams is taken down with another high tackle by the Bombers. That time it was Hobbs. Just slung him around. He realised he was always going to get him high, made the most of it. Williams inside forward 50, looks for Dixon. Ball comes off hands, crashing in was a couple of Port players. They couldn't get possession. Horn Francis was chief among them. Now it's farmed out eventually. Burton outside 50, bombs away, all the way to the goal square. 3 Bombers come across, and then Shaw, Phillips in the end, who knocked it over the line away from Marshall. So a rush behind, which brings it to under 2 kicks. 11 points the margin in favour of the Bombers, who led by 15 at quarter time. Ball to be brought in straight away by McGrath.
All of a sudden, 6 of the last 7 scores going Port Adelaide's way. The Bombers need an answer. Phillips takes a nice pack mark. He turns and looks towards the logo broadcast side. Using the body, Shield got away from Houston. Couldn't quite reel in the mark. Drives in a big clash. Shirt fronted. It's bouncing off Rosie's Shield. Thankfully, Rosie's got back to his feet, but he was completely collected. Coming through now, Essendon inside to Merritt. Heads for home from 45. The Bombers never looked back. Bruising footy. And Zach Merritt capitalises. He answers for Essendon. Puts them back up by 17. 9-1-55. Plays 5-8-38. What a hit that was. Jack Becketta was right in front of it on the boundary. Jack.
It was pretty big. I heard it from here. But Essendon has pulled the trigger on their sub. Jai Menzies coming into the game as we speak. Jordan Ridley subbed out. We already thought Essendon's defence were undersized. Well, Jai Menzies, the 180-centimetre forward, is running straight to the forward line. It'll be interesting to see who goes back for the Bombers.
Just looking at some of the statistics for this quarter, Port Adelaide actually dominated. The contested footy is 30-16. The clearance count is 9-4, so they've addressed that issue we spoke about at quarter time. Inside 50s. In the modern game, field position so important, building pressure in your front half. It's currently 12-4, yet the margin is now back out to 17 points in favour of the Bombers.
Gee, Dylan Shield, look at him in that Guernsey. It's a big rig to be going to be run into. Out of the middle, it comes to Butters. Flip the hand pass to Drew. Inside 50 he goes for Port Adelaide. Junior Rioli picks it up. Off to Wines. Where possession. Wide he goes to his good mate and Boak. And then Boak goes short for Rosie. Just inside the arc of 50. At right half forward, he'll take the shot at goal. No, he thought about the short pass. Now he goes back, settles himself.
Well, I'll tell you what, Crossy, in the context of this quarter, it's a massive kick for Rosie and Port Adelaide. Massive kick.
Hush comes over the crowd. Rosie comes in, gets close to the man on the mark, goes high with the kick, goes astray. In the end, Draper able to come across for Essendon and smash it through for the minor score. 16-point game, 24.5 into the second term. Bombers with that lead.
Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff with you for the call. Great contest so far on Grandstand AFL. Still 2 more games to come as well. Collingwood and Sydney and North Melbourne and St Kilda. McGrath now exits with a long kick out to the eastern side. A pack awaits. McKenzie got the spoil towards the boundary line, and Boak will let it roll over. It'll be tossed back into play. Jordan Ridley, if that is a concussion, a little bit of a concern for the Bombers, who have a pretty difficult game to come next Saturday against the Brisbane Lions. If he's not up for that, there'd be a bit of a blowdown back for Essendon.
Concern for Junior Rioli, I would have thought as well.
Toss back in. Draper takes it out of the ruck and races away. Run down by Butters. Thought he had more time than he thought. The tackle wasn't heavy, but it certainly surprised him. He dropped the footy. Free kick, Port Adelaide in the centre square. Butters.
Good game, Butters.
Heads to the scoreboard pocket, put in the path of Dixon. Hines in front position. He's crunched in the pack, goes to ground, but got the fist to it. Houston gave away a free kick, or did he receive one? Thought he was held, and in the end, he's been given. Free kick to go his way. And Port Adelaide will have a shot on goal from 45 out, straight in front. Archie Perkins, the offender. And we know Dan Houston has a booming boot.
It was interesting looking at the two umpires there. One, I think it was Razor Ray, called play on, but it was the non-officiating umpire that actually called that. A terrific tackle from Houston.
Stiff there, Crossy?
Well, he just got it. Bang.
Houston from 50 heads for home. It's across the face for a minor score. So confusion there with the umpire's decision, but it doesn't burn the Bombers. They're up by 15 points now. Essendon 9-1-55, Port Adelaide 5-10-40. Still 3 minutes left in this second term.
McGrath plays on for fullback, kicks wide for Setterfield. And the Bombers have to settle for a throw-in. Jack Burketta on the boundary.
The Bombers confirming Jordan Ridley is out of the game with concussion, so he will automatically miss that next week's game against Brisbane.
So, ball to be thrown back in. Draper knocks it forward. Parrish runs onto it. Quick kick, spiralling down towards half forward. Aaliyah read it okay. Hands above his head. Got the head pass away to McKenzie. Flipped it out to Wines, who was slow inside. Caldwell got to enforce the kick to be errant. It's on the ground at half forward for the Bombers. Hobbs comes in, taken in a tackle, trying desperately to get out of it. And Bonner hog-tied him and sent him to the ground. In fact, it was Menzie doing his best to get away, but he couldn't. Forces the ball up.
Menzie on for Ridley if you're just joining us. Draper wins it out of the ruck. Didn't have anyone to go to and almost flung it in the path of Houston. He wraps up Shield. Caldwell can't gather either. Clearing kick for the power up towards centre wing broadcast side. Burn-Jones trying to wrestle his way out of the Heppel tackle and escorts it over the boundary line to be tossed back into play. Bombers by 15 as we approach half-time. Plenty in this one. Tossed back into play. Teakle front position, edged out of it by Draper, wanted the free kick, won't get it. Clearing kick up to half forward. Wiedemann crunches the pack. Menzie's there to rove. His handball just clipped the footy, but as a result only carried about a metre to Bergman. Kick is poor as he heads up to half forward. Gave it straight back to Heppel.
Heppel was about to peel off a kick inside, thought against it. Now he hits the man leading up in Shield. Shield still behind centre wing. Goes down to half forward. Wiedemann comes up and big and strong. Takes the mark in front of the eyes. Wiedemann takes his time now. Wants somebody to lead up. He had Heppel short. He decides to go inside 50. Perhaps was looking for Stringer. It carried over his head. And Bergman read it well for the intercept for Port Adelaide.
Bergman's saved Port Adelaide on multiple occasions today. Just ability to read the flight of the footy. He's pretty undersized for a half-back.
Switches to Butters, who'll exit defensive 50 to the eastern outer side. Finlayson in a one-on-one, almost entangled there. And somehow may have got away with a hold on Kelly. He's taken the mark, centre wing. Hands it off to Butters running by, who surged off half-back. Up towards right half forward. Marshall's leading out a bit shallow for him. It bounces off his shins. Kelly put his head over the footy and was cleaned up as a result. Butters with a big bounce. He shirt fronts poor Nick Martin. Bombers players down everywhere. It's high contested footy right now. Boundary throw in to come at right half forward.
Tell you what, if Butters was 6'3" and 90 kilos, he'd be dangerous. He's a bull terrier, that kid.
Draper goes against Teakle, who socketed out of mid-air. Got it down towards half forward. Picked up by Hind. Gave it to Parrish, who then put it in the air and went to bare 15. Went about 30 up. Hind, though, pulled it down for the mark. He says, let's just slow things down a bit, which is hard to do if you're the Bombers because it seems like their natural style is go, go, go. So Hines down the line with the kick, comes off hands. Shield just flips a hand pass forward. Well done by Wiedemann. Picks it up below the knees. Off he goes to Tip and Woody outside of the boot. Finds Stringer on the dive. Missed Shield with his hand passed into open goal pretty much. Burton comes away. Kicks it wide for Rosie. Crowd begging him to go on. Straight away he goes off to Boak. Down the line he goes. Mark taken wide out by Marshall at half forward.
Marshall turns, skies it up into the 50. Finlayson the target, he launches but can't reel it in. Zerk Thatcher thumbled at the back. Martin battling for it with McEntee. Picked up by Boak, who can snap from 40. Heads for home. Misses on the right-hand side. Port Adelaide just keep peppering, but they can't seem to find a major. That's 5 straight behinds for them. Down by 14 points. Essendon 9-1-55. The Power 5-11-41. 30 minutes into the second term.
Heppel brings the ball in. Finds Langford, 45 from goal.
And Port Adelaide dodged a massive bullet in that last entry from Essendon. Just the wayward handball from Stringer. And as we said, Boak missed that snap. It's been the story of their quarter.
So missed opportunities for Port Adelaide. And the Bombers all but straight on every occasion. 9-1-55 at halftime. Port Adelaide 5-11-41. And it's an enjoyable game to watch. Maybe not so much if you're a Port supporter when the Power is in front of goal, but nevertheless it's been entertaining for sure, and at half-time it's a 14-point lead for the visitors, the Bombers.
So Port Adelaide only just being able to chip away at the quarter-time margin of 15. The goal scorers at the major break for the Bombers, 2 to Langford and Wiedemann, singles to Caldwell, Merritt, Hobbs, Perkins and McDonald, Tip and Woody. For the home side, Marshall, Rioli and McEntee all have a single, and Burne-Jones with 2 goals to his name at half-time. So Essendon out front at the moment. They've showed a fair bit over the past month against some of the top-tier teams, and a win this afternoon would place them inside the top 8. Port Adelaide chasing a 5th consecutive win and well and truly in this contest at the major break. The thoughts of our experts, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
I thought that Port's ability to, I guess, turn that contested possession in that quarter was really important. I think in the first quarter they were playing a bit reactive to, I guess, the dominance of the ruckman in Draper, but their ability to not hit the scoreboard really hurt them. Really hurt them. And when we seen teams just, lose the 4 points from their inaccuracy, they'll take real confidence in their ability to hit the scoreboard, but they need to start kicking goals. And maybe that's looking at the entry where they're kicking it from. They went quite wide that quarter. I mean, Dan Houston had a shot pretty much straight in front and he missed that, but maybe just look where they're kicking it from.
Well, I think the other thing as well, and I know we sort of talk a lot about it, and you hear it when commentators and experts are talking about the modern game of AFL football, field position is so critical. And we mentioned it at quarter time in terms of the centre bounce dominance of Essendon, giving them that field position. And then once the ball's in deep in your D50, it's actually hard to exit if sides, which they do these days, set up really well behind the footy. Port Adelaide, and I think I mentioned it at the quarter time break, that Josh Carr no doubt would have been working overtime to address that momentum and I guess the deficiencies that they were observing in that first quarter. They changed that, and they started to get their hands on the footy around the stoppage and the clearance, which did give Port Adelaide field position. And in terms of some of the KPIs that quarter, if you looked at inside 50s, and again, that's obviously related to that field position and trying to, able to manufacture repeat entries, they were 15-6, so they were +9 inside 50s. The clearance count, they were +7, 13-6, again, Port Adelaide's way. And as Ebony said, the contested possessions, they were 41-25. So that's a massive win in terms of possessions and KPIs that Port Adelaide would look at. But they didn't capitalise and they weren't able to hit the scoreboard and close that margin. So it's interesting even watching Port Adelaide walk off the ground to go into their halftime address with Ken Hinkley. No doubt they'd be really confident and positive in terms of the talk in their rooms. But the missing piece of the puzzle at the moment is being able to convert on the scoreboard and hit the scoreboard to apply scoreboard pressure.
Big news as well from that second term is Jordan Ridley has been subbed out of the game with concussion after copping a high one from Junior Rioli, who did jump to almost block him. I haven't yet seen a replay, but you did, Crossy, and you seem to think that Junior Rioli's in a fair bit of strife for that.
Oh, well, anytime you make contact with a player that causes a concussion in this day and age, you're going to be in some sort of trouble.
And I think even further to that, and I must admit, I haven't seen the replay of it, and if you choose to make contact, that's probably the key thing. So obviously, if Rioli has chosen to do that and make the contact, if it's hit him in the head, he's in massive trouble.
Port with North Melbourne next weekend, then Melbourne the Friday night after, if it is a 2-weeker possibly for Junior Rioli. And for poor Jordan Ridley, he'll miss a pretty blockbuster matchup next Saturday at the Gabba against the Lions. They will be desperate to have him for that, and unfortunately he'll be out with concussion protocols. So won't look too far ahead. The Bombers still obviously hoping to get over the line here at the Adelaide Oval with plenty at stake. Led by Darcy Parish with 19 touches, Zach Merritt with 14 as well. The best for the Power, Zach Butters with 16, Travis Boak with 14. The forward line for Essendon has surprised me. It continues to gel immensely, considering it's missing some really key targets. I mean, Peter Wright's out long term. Harrison Jones, the reports today, has a back issue, so he won't be back for a while. And even so, was actually omitted the last time he was in this side, so he's arguably not best 22 right now. And Wiedemann at Langford really seems to be working for them.
It does.
Well, Langford's actually had to go back now that Ridley's off. So, I mean, it's great for a coach to have the ultimate swingman, but it's their ability to, I guess, get their mids. You see Zach Merritt kick goal and not relying on the tall forwards to always get the job done. I think Tippin Woody's been awesome. His work rate today has been immense. He's actually working up the ground. He's probably building into fitness. I mean, we probably forget that he's missed a lot of footy and, when the game goes past you. But I think his impact today has been really good. His pressure's been high. But they're just not just reliant on their tools kicking the goals.
And I think further to that too, guys, is that the way that Essendon like to play the game is quite quick. And they like to get speed on the ball and get it inside forward 50 quickly. So regardless of whether you're tall or small and you don't have your keys, if you can get quick ball movement and you've got space and no pressure on the ball carry, it does make your job as a forward, again, whether you're a tall or a small, a lot easier.
Helps when the entries are clean, doesn't it?
That's right.
So it's working for the Bombers at the moment. And Port Adelaide, we've been praising their midfield depth all campaign, but they're certainly losing the battle at the moment to the likes of Parish, Merritt, Shield, and Jack Stringer's playing more predominantly forward this game so far, but we know at any point Brad Scott could pull the trigger on the package and inject him into the midfield.
He's a game breaker, isn't he?
He's so impressive, and I've seen him a couple of times in person, but even in the warm-up today, he's an absolute unit. No. TV doesn't do him justice. No. He's a big-bodied midfielder when he wants to be.
And I think, he's had 5 clearances today to half-time, so I think the ability to be able to play him inside the centre bounce and then put him forward, and that's... You don't want to have him in the midfield for the whole game because he'll probably have a great half and then he'll be, you bugger for the rest of the game and they get no impact from him. So they're probably starting to really find... Yeah, well, we're just having a look at the replay here.
This is the Junior Rioli hit.
Oh. He's kind of away from him. We're just getting a real good look at... Oh, yeah, he's going to be in trouble for that.
Yeah, actually collect him there. So, that's a problem.
Yeah. And Willie, Willie Jr. has been great today. I think his work rate's been awesome. So he's probably another one over the past couple of weeks that's really started to find form.
Yep.
And another reason why Port Adelaide's forward line's been clicking and his energy and pressure around the footy has been really strong. So, I think they have North Melbourne next week, so probably not the most important of the clashes that they've had over the past month. But I think he'll be missing some time depending on, the verdict from the MRI because it's... we're not quite sure what they have this year. It's I don't know, really know. Yeah, it could be anything.
I think the issue is if he is found guilty of that, which looks likely, I guess, it probably is multiple weeks.
Yeah.
So at that stage, then he does miss an important clash, which is the Melbourne battle here on Friday night. Yeah. So that'll be a blow.
I think the other thing as well is, I must admit, I don't know the exact criteria, but it was clearly off the ball as well. So it wasn't anywhere in the vicinity of the footy. He tried to initiate the contact. He's chosen to do what he did, and he got him high.
Yeah, well, off the ball's a spurious sort of thing these days. I think it can be said. What was it, Barry Hall, who got to play an AFL Grand Final at one stage, clocking somebody off what was deemed to be in the play, and it was like 70 metres from the ball. So I guess in that respect, they were kicking the ball into that space, so he could say, well, it was actually part of the play. But nevertheless, unfortunately, he's managed to collect Ridley high, and he's out of the game with concussion. So I think we're looking that that will be a short holiday for Junior Rioli.
It won't exactly be like for like, but we spoke to Kane Farrell in SA Grandstand yesterday, and he reckons he's about a week off. So maybe he comes back in for the North Melbourne game, returned from a fractured jaw, and he seems up and about and training with the team. The score here, if you are just joining us, Essendon by 14 points at half-time, 9-1-55 to Port Adelaide's 5-11-41. Still 2 games to come today, Collingwood and Sydney at the MCG. Pre-game coverage of that starts in about, I'm going to say 10 minutes time. I'm trying to do the maths here with the half hour, but if you do want to hear it, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. Obviously this game available to you on the extra button, and following this contest there'll be a short break on that extra button, and then North Melbourne and St Kilda will come your way from the Docklands, the game to conclude round 8, and that will be available to you from 4 p.m. Adelaide time, 4:30 Eastern. So plenty of footy happening, and unfortunately somehow they've managed to overlap all 3 games on this Sunday, and hopefully next year we start to see some clear air on our Sunday football. I'll take you around the grounds with some scores across the country as well in a moment, but for now on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the Listen app, it's time to tack the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. The peak body for oil and gas industry has cautiously welcomed planned tax reforms that would raise an additional $2.4 billion from the industry over the next 4 years. The federal government's announced next week's federal budget will contain new limits on tax deductions claimed on profits from offshore projects, fast-tracking revenue that would not have been collected until next decade. Australian Petroleum Production and Exploration Association Chief Executive Samantha McCulloch says the changes should have bipartisan support.
We recognise that they try to strike a balance, again, between the current budget pressures and the need for certainty to ensure that the industry can now go forward and consider future investments in gas supply that is needed to meet growing demand at home and abroad.
Police in the US state of Texas say at least 8 people have been killed and 7 others wounded in a mass shooting. Larry Buttrose with the details.
A gunman opened fire in a shopping mall in the suburb of Allen in the city of Dallas. Hundreds of people were evacuated as eyewitnesses described a man firing indiscriminately at passers-by. Some of the victims are thought to be children. A police officer on an unrelated call at the mall heard gunshots and responded, and police in Allen say the gunman was shot and killed. The police have called the mass shooting a tragedy and say their sympathies are with the families of the victims.
A day of ancient ceremony and tradition has come to a close in Britain after the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. They were crowned in a deeply religious service at Westminster Abbey, attended by heads of state from around the world. The heir to the throne, Prince William, has pledged allegiance to the King.
I, William, Prince of Wales, pledge my loyalty to you, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, as your liege man of life and limb. So help me God.
Authorities in Guatemala say around 1,200 people are being allowed to return home near the Fuego volcano, which erupted recently. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha with the details.
People from 7 towns had been ordered to leave the area on Thursday when the volcano began erupting, sending a thick cloud of ash and toxic gas into the sky. There were fears of a repeat of the 2018 tragedy when the Fuego erupted suddenly, leaving local residents very little time to escape. More than 200 people died then, and whole villages were buried in volcanic ash and lava. This time, Guatemala's emergency services were quick to respond, providing buses to evacuate the local population. The eruption only lasted 2 days, and the authorities say no one was injured.
The Victorian opposition leader says he'll support a motion to expel controversial Liberal MP Moira Deeming from the parliamentary party. John Pasutos yesterday received a motion from 5 Liberal Party MPs seeking the expulsion of Ms Deeming at a party room meeting this Friday. It came hours after Ms Deeming denied threatening to sue her own party following her 9-month suspension over her involvement with an anti-trans rights rally allegedly associated with neo-Nazis. Mr Pasutos says the matter will be dealt with on Friday.
I know there is growing concern in the organisation that this is now the second time that this matter has come before the party room, and I expect that there'll be some organisational response to that as well, but I'll leave that to the organisation for the time being.
Staying in Victoria, the state government says tunnel boring is now complete on the Westgate Tunnel project, which is expected to open to motorists in 2025. On Wednesday, the tunnel boring machine TBM Bella broke through the South Kingsville after completing a 4-kilometre journey from the west side of the Maribyrnong River. The machine will now be dismantled and work will begin on building the road deck and installing electrical lighting and safety systems in the twin tunnels. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, says it's a significant milestone.
While the two TBMs were working, it was the biggest project of its kind anywhere in the world and the biggest ever in the Southern Hemisphere. There's enough rock and earth that's been taken out to fill the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
And authorities in Darwin have charged 2 men with drug offences after seizing 3 kilograms of cocaine and $250,000 in cash. Northern Territory Police say they began monitoring the movements of one of the men after a tip-off from New South Wales Police. It's alleged the men buried an empty drum in bushland near Darwin's Esplanade and later used the drum to store drugs and cash. Police say they seized further drugs and cash from a property in Howard Springs. Both men are due to face court on Monday. You're up to date with ABC News.
What's the best thing in the world that's also on the ABC Listen app? The footy! This season, get your footy live and ad-free on the ABC Listen app. AFL, NRL, men's, women's. Whatever you fix, we've got you covered.
She's got it! Bye-bye! See you later!
Every goal, try, mark and tackle. Called by ABC Sports' expert commentary team. AFL and NRL, live and ad-free. Get it on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Bonner around the body, kicks into the scoreboard pocket, and Marshall, Superman dive forward, pulls it in. Marshall will start on the fence outside the 50, right forward pocket. Marshall skies it. It's curling back towards goal. Magnificent.
Davey looks around and decides, where will I go? There's so many choices.
Hobbs now has it. Inside his kick, finds Phillips, attacking edge of the square. Heads inside 50. Wiedemann got away from McKenzie. Both hands out in front, takes the uncontested grab. Sam Wiedemann had 5 goals last week. This will be for 2. Boots cross the paint of 50. Beautiful kick, never in doubt. Straight as an arrow. Phillips takes a nice pack mark. He turns and looks towards the logo broadcast side. Using the body, Shield got away from Houston. Couldn't quite reel in the mark. Drives in a big clash. Shirt fronted. It's bouncing off Rosie's Shield. Thankfully, Rosie's got back to his feet, but he was completely collected. Coming through now, Essendon inside to Merritt. Heads for home from 45. The Bombers never looked back. Bruising footy, and Zach Merritt capitalises. What a hit that was.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
And now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Back and forth affair at the Adelaide Oval, but it is the Bombers up by 14 points at the major break. 9-1-55 to Port Adelaide's 5-11-41. If you are just joining us, Jordan Ridley subbed out of the game. He got collected high late by Junior Rioli, who we likely looked at by the MRO and possibly face multiple weeks. Unfortunately for Port Adelaide, with North Melbourne and then Melbourne to come in the next couple of weeks, and Ridley will be missing the Gabba clash against the Lions due to concussion protocols. Still to come today, Collingwood and Sydney at the MCG. You can hear our coverage of that in 5 minutes' time on the AFL button if you do want to hear it. The pre-game in the build-up to bounce down about 40 minutes away at the MCG, and then later today, North Melbourne and St Kilda at the Docklands. There is no late changes for the Pies and the Swans. Jack Ginnivan is the sub for Collingwood, and Aaron Francis for the Swans. Around the country, fair bit happening in the NRL. The early game, the West Tigers lead the Dragons 14-10. Still to come, the Roosters and the Cowboys, the Titans and the Eels. In the NBA, Game 3 of 2 separate contests saw the Heat overcome the Knicks 105-86 to take a 2-1 lead, and the Lakers knocked off the Warriors by 30 points, 127-97, so they have a 2-1 lead as well over Golden State. In the Super Netball, there's a game happening at the moment in Melbourne between the Vixens and the Fever, and the home side leads by 2 goals in the second term, 25-23. For our South Australian listeners, the Thunderbirds had a win yesterday over the Giants by 4 goals, 54-50. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, Jack Burketta with you for the call. The text line 0437 774 774. Lee in Tasmania's got in touch in regards to the possible suspension for Junior Rioli and says Give me a break. Next week's clash against North Melbourne is an important one. Expect it to be hostile down in Tassie due to Jason Horne-Francis. I do agree on that aspect. That, maybe the environment, the conditions, the travel, and whatever the result is this afternoon for Port Adelaide, maybe North Melbourne have a chance to squeeze an upset. It's a big chance.
Not from what I've seen.
Here's me saying next week's game doesn't matter. I completely forgot. That's going to be enemy territory for Jason Horne-Francis, and you can only imagine what attention he's going to get, because I remember when he left the club there was some pretty controversial comments and likes and interaction with social media from his ex-teammates. So, that will be pretty hostile, you would have thought.
I wonder what the environment actually will be, because obviously there'll be North supporters travelling to Tasmania, but are there going to be a lot of supporters down south who actually support North Melbourne and are going to go out there and feel aggrieved by Horne-Francis enough to boo him? If it was at Docklands, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
If it's in Tasmania, maybe it's not going to be as vocal as you'd expect.
Might not be as vocal, but still that sort of pack mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I dare say he'll run into a bit of banter.
I think the week will be a big build-up for sure. The second half coming your way on Grandstand AFL and ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the Listen app. The Bombers by 14. Josh Ebbs, do you think they hold on to their lead?
No, look, I don't. I don't think they do. I think Port Adelaide, eventually the tide will turn and they'll start to hit the scoreboard. And we just heard Nathan Bassett, actually, when we were during our ad break, and the news that Bassett sort of mentioned that the first quarter, the centre bounce was a bit of an issue. They addressed that, but kicking inaccuracy really hurt him in that second quarter. So I think Port Adelaide, they'll address that. I reckon they had enough, and the KPIs in terms of the contested ball, the tackle, the inside 50s, all that are so far in Port Adelaide's favour. I think eventually they'll pay off.
Ready to go with the second half. Match that's lived up to expectations. And Draper gets the first tap down towards Stringer. Shut down. They put Finlayson, by the way, into the ruck contest to start this half, and that's worked for them as he gets the ball on a receive from Bonner and sends it inside forward 50. Redmond goes back with a flight, can't get it. Strong mark by Dixon in the middle of the pack. 20 out, 45-degree angle.
Well, again, we've been harping on it for the first half of this game, the centre bounce and how critical it is. And as I just said, Nathan Bassett spoke about it at half-time in an interview that he did. Stringer got first possession. They were able to apply enough pressure, cause the turnover, and I think you called it that the spread from Finlayson was outstanding. And when you got big fellas that can take contested mark, they're gold.
You need big fellas up forward who can kick goals. That was away to the right, badly away to the right for Charlie Dixon. That knee carrying about a carton and a half of strapping as Redmond plays on, uses his long kick. It was touched off the boot. Dixon in a contest with Zerk Thatcher. Essendon working wide with a tap out to Setterfield down the line.
Kick was poor, hit McKenzie at centre wing. Bombers by 13 at the moment. Port Adelaide's last 6 scoring shots have been behinds either side of half-time. Inside on the 45, McKenzie hits Burton on the logo. Had an option leading forward and Wines didn't go to him in the end. He'll switch through the centre square to Williams. Only player really in the back half. Back up towards the logo on that eastern side. Houston presents.
There's not a lot of movement ahead of the ball for him.
They're just trying to work their way through the Bombers' defence, but they're not really finding any territory. Burton across just to the right of Houston takes the mark behind the centre circle. Now goes long into the 50. It's flooded. Nearly taken by Redmond. It bounced off him straight to Butters, who gets boot to ball from 40. It's sitting up in the goal square. Outnumbered. Finlayson had 3 to beat. Backspin as it bounces towards McEntee, trying to gather up against Setterfield. The Bomber got there first and he's wrapped up by Powell Pepper. Ball up to come, left forward pocket, 25 out.
I actually don't mind that long ball inside their forward 50. I know sides these days are trying to work it in and look for the perfect play, but the long ball inside 50, get a contest, bring it to ground, get numbers front and centre.
Off the ruck contest, Merritt quick onto the left boot, sends it outside defensive 50 and over the line, and Ray Chamberlain says insufficient intent. So it'll be Williams with the free kick for Port Adelaide, a left-footed defender. Crosses the line, called the play on, goes into the pocket and sends it out on the full. That was terrible.
You talk about the inside forward 50 kick. What I would like to see a bit more from Port Adelaide is the movement. It's okay going inside to one-on-ones, but they actually need to create more opportunities with moving. They're pretty stagnant.
So Langford brings it back into play, playing in defence at the moment. Heads up towards right half back. Aaliyah with the spoil in the pack. Perkins charging through. Only went as far as Drew's brought to ground. Ball up to come. 13-point game. Pretty chilly here at the Adelaide Oval, but lots of punters in attendance. Draper took it out, just got boot to ball as he spun around, but turned it over. Horne-Francis gathers, gives it off. Bonner from 30, threw it on the boot. It's across the face again. 5-13, Port Adelaide 43. Play Essendon 9-1, 55 rather. 3 minutes into the third term. We saw this last week, Adelaide and Collingwood. He got the Pies over the line in accuracy. Will it do the same for the Bombers?
Bonner on his non-preferred right foot, give him the benefit of the doubt in that one. Meanwhile, Draper's marked the kick in low down near the boundary line, out on the eastern side at right half back for the Bombers. South Adelaide product down the line. He goes looking for Tip and Woody. McDonald, Tip and Woody has the ball knocked away, makes a tackle, as does Merritt. McDonald, Tip and Woody goes again, taps the ball out. Bombers had numbers over the ball, couldn't get it. Teakle released it to Drew and then Bonner. All by hand, and finally Butters. Butters sends it inside 50. Redmond back with a flight, had the ball knocked away. Pal Pepper snatched it and then was taken to ground in a tackle. So it's about 40 out, straight in front of the goal face. Port Adelaide attacking the River Torrens end of the ground.
Dixon front position, won it down. Shield trying to pull it in. He was held up by Drew. He had plenty of his jumper, but no whistle. Dixon now head over the footy, can't gather. Redmond becomes the tackler on McEntee. Another ball up to come. Straight in front, 40 out. Port Adelaide's attacking 50. Dixon again, front position, won it down. Just wide of Pal Pepper. Drew's tackled by a couple. Parrish and Setterfield set upon him.
And these repeat stoppages are good for Port Adelaide. They just continually build that pressure on the defence of Essendon.
They're slowly forcing it forward as well. Closer towards the 35. Dixon went to ground in the tap. Managed to get a handball out though to Horne-Francis. Now Boak arched the back but couldn't get away from Martin. Managed to get a disposal out. Not sure how clean it was. Back to Horne-Francis, who turns. Retreats to Houston at centre half forward. Breaks away from Caldwell. Heads into the right forward pocket. Pal Pepper's at the back. Takes the chest mark as Marshall went to ground. Entangled in the right forward pocket with Langford. And Pal Pepper will have a shot on goal. Tight angle. 10 out.
Well, it's interesting even, again, in the modern game when you're creating those repeat stoppages inside your forward 50. As I said, it does build pressure. The score doesn't necessarily come from the stoppage, but as we saw there...
Pal Pepper curls it through. His first of the afternoon. Back down to a one-goal game at the Adelaide Oval. Essendon 9-1, 55. Port Adelaide 6-13, 49. The Bombers, they've really starting to let this one go. The last six scoring shots the way at Port Adelaide. Essendon had a goal before that at the 23-minute mark, but feels like the home side's game at the moment. Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff, your experts.
And as I was about to say, that as we saw in those repeat stoppages, you're not getting the perfect play. So it's not from ruckman to forward to snap goal. It's that pressure that's built. The loose ball spills out. And as we see on the replay, Houston are just, again, a terrific kick inside forward 50, almost a free kick to Marshall. Pal Pepper, it landed in his hands. And as we said earlier, those snaps around the body, even though it was on his opposite foot, was relatively an easy finish for Pal Pepper and Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide taking the long way around, but they are getting closer. Draper almost took it out of the middle from the ruck contest. They do get it forward through Stringer. He kicks it down to half forward. Burton with a strong mark away from Merritt. Port Adelaide come again. Out wide for Williams. Down the line he goes straight away to Rosie. Port Adelaide keeping it short at the moment. Rosie looks inside, decides to kick down the line and high towards half forward. Marshall gets a good leap and can't bring it down. Ball held in close. And Teakle managed to grab it on the ground, said the umpire, and hold it in. That's a free kick. And he was lucky he didn't give away 50 then, because he had the ball, stood up, left the ball on the ground.
Langford with possession for the Bombers, looks inside, 45 kick, finds Redmond. The SA product maybe almost an audition for the power this afternoon. Heads along into the 50. Pack crunches. Front and square Rosie. Hands it off towards Finlayson, centre half forward. Back to Butters, then winds there. Almost going backwards. And now finally Rosie gets it out towards Houston. He'll head towards the 50. Dixon's got some space on Zerk Thatcher. Good spoil late from the Bombers defender. Put it in the path of McGrath and out to the eastern side.
Jonas down behind play from that last collision in the back line for Port Adelaide. There's 4 trainers around him now. We might have to stop play. Ball out on centre wing on the eastern side of the ground with Wiedemann. He goes down the line and high to the pack. Aliir takes a strong mark. Draper appeals to the umpire to no avail. Still, Jonas slowly getting back to his feet. Jack Paqueta will have the details on what the problem is in just a moment.
Looks incredibly groggy.
Well, it was in that marking contest. He got sort of hit front on. I wouldn't be surprised if it was an errant sort of knee into his sort of solar plexus.
Breaking out into a jog now, which is a good sign. Butters heads into the centre square in space. Rosie can turn and race through the circle up towards the 50. Marshall front position had 3 bites and just lost it late. Almost pulled away from it. Essendon have it in defensive 50. Much to the disappointment of the Power faithful. Martin heads up towards Hobbs behind centre wing. Now up to left half forward. 2-on-2 awaits. Burton brought it to ground. Stringer can gather though. Underground handball in the path of Menzies. Put it back in the path of Stringer. The package gathers from 25. Snaps and finishes. Silences, or doesn't silence the crowd, but almost tells them, don't worry about it, because the Bombers are back. Up by 2 goals. 10-1-61. 6-13-49. 9 minutes into the third term. Essendon up by 2 goals. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
Tom Jonas is still sitting on the bench. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me over all these passionate Port Adelaide supporters, but Tom Jonas is still sitting on the bench. It definitely did look like a knee to the chest area as he went back with the fight. No sign of Frankie Evans really warming up at this stage. I'll keep you posted.
Well, the Port Adelaide faithful were going bananas with that non-decision from the umpire on Marshall. And on first sight, it looked like he was held after he dropped the ball, and Essendon able to rebound quickly and against the flow, because it almost had that feel about it that Port Adelaide were threatening to blow the game apart, but against the momentum, against the flow of play, Stringer able to finish with a great snap.
Bombers came into this match with 99 goals for the season in 7 matches. That's their most prolific output in terms of goals since 2013, so best in a decade. Out of the middle, Port Adelaide with a bounce from Finlayson. He gets to 45 and goes for goal and hooks that for the minor score. Tale of 2 ends of football. Stringer with the snap at the other end for the goal, and then Finlayson running out of the middle. And now he's got another mark from the kick in. No, he's dropped it. Play on.
11-point game, Bombers up. Finlayson gets it out to Boak, right half forward. Now to Burton, nearly run down by Davey Jr. Just got it out late, but the Bombers have numbers waiting. Martin's handball poor. Somehow picked out Finlayson amongst 3. Forces Parrish to become the tackler on McEntee. We'll get a ball up, attacking edge of the square for the Power. 6-14-50 they are. Essendon 10-1-61. 11 minutes into the third. 1 down by Phillips for the Bombers to Hobbs. Handball back to Parrish. Under a bit of pressure, he coughed it up to Rosie. Inside for the Power to Williams in the square. It'll head towards the arc. Dixon entangled with Zerk Thatcher. Went to ground. Zerk Thatcher couldn't pull it in either. Dixon trying to wrench it out now. He's got 5 Bombers around him. Can't control it. Almost playing tunnel ball, trying to get it towards Burn-Jones. Martin's waiting now. Handball out to Setterfield. Then Langford clearing kick for Essendon. A hit and hope. And it'll be out on the full. Free kick, Port Adelaide left half forward.
But it almost feels like the pressure's gone up a notch for both sides, just not getting any clean football. But Port need to be able to hit targets here and not just wait for the Essendon defenders to flood back as they've been doing majority of this game.
Butters at the bottom of the pack after the Bombers got first touch on the ball. Parrish with a hand pass away. McGrath taken down in a tackle. Turned over. It comes to Boak from 40. There's a goal. The former captain shows how it's done. And Port Adelaide hit back. They trail by 5 points. The Bombers 10-1-61. Port Adelaide inaccurate but close. 7-14-56. 12 minutes down. Third term on Grandstand AFL.
And when you talk about forward 50 pressure and you're trying to explain what that looks like, that's just a perfect example of it. Butters again. We've spoken about how influential he's been throughout the course of this game. Great tackle. And almost against the flow in terms of being able to kick majors. Boak just steadied the side and just went bang. 6-pointer.
21 touches for the game. Zach Butters alongside Connor Rosie. It's a 5-point game at the Adelaide Oval. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff with you. Jordan Ridley subbed out of the game with concussion. Tom Jonas is on the bench with a chest problem. Home fans up and about on a cold day in Adelaide. Bounce favours Teakle, won it down. Phillips slapped it just away from Wines as he looked to gather. Picked up by Caldwell for Essendon. Back towards Perkins, off a step, he skies it into the 50, diving across, nearly reeled in by Menzies, just couldn't quite get there. Williams gathers, gets it out towards Houston, nice kick to Wines and they're away. Port Adelaide surging through the middle, hands it wide to Drew, up to right half forward, McEntee's all alone, turns, kicks to the top of the goal square, Dixon's in front, coming late, good spoil. Kelly came across and knocked it over the boundary line. Playing his 62nd game at the Adelaide Oval, Jake Kelly put it all on the line there as he dove across at the top of the goal square. It ended up being a minor score as it rolled on the other side of the behind posts. So it'll be a 4-point game at the Oval. Essendon 10-1-61, Port Adelaide 7-15-57.
Heppel brought it in long, came off the pack to Parrish, got a hand pass forward. Caldwell was good, got it to Perkins. Inside half forward, they go with the kick. Well done again by Horn Francis. Went back, two grab mark at half back, spreads it wide to the broadcast side. Drew takes the mark, plays on, changes the angle, had runners. Teakle with the mark, gave it straight to Houston. Houston goes long, ball comes off to Heppel for the Bombers. He kicks it wide, had a number there. The umpire says throw it in.
Oh, that was as deliberate as it gets.
The bounce didn't favour him.
No.
Yeah, the benefit of the doubt for the umpires there. And God, if Port Adelaide are going to win this game, it's going to be majority of the fact of the Port Adelaide faithful getting behind. And as players, you can really feel that energy when they're out there. So they keep nice and loud.
The worst team for free kick differential. Toss back into play. Port Adelaide down by 4 at the moment, and they're forcing it towards the 50. Off hands, it rolls over the boundary line just inside the arc.
Well, one player I'd like to highlight for Port Adelaide, well, probably two players. Finlayson's been outstanding in this quarter, but Horn Francis, only the 7 disposals for half-time, just starting to work his way nicely into this game. 5 touches in this third quarter.
45 out, right forward pocket. Phillips got a clean run at it, slapped it straight to Parrish, kicked it up and down almost 10 metres to Perkins. The whistle won't be blown. He thought it was a mark. Horn Francis wraps him up. Ball up to come right half forward, and Francis shoves Hobbs to the ground as well. Not sure what that was about. Umpires clearly missed it. Quick ball up. Teakle comes late to win it down to the Hornet. He's run down by Hobbs. There's the thank you, good night. Oh, it's too high. Hobbs tried his best to get stuck into the Hornet, and he's given it away. Jason Horn-Francis, right half forward, can send Port Adelaide inside 50.
Horn-Francis looks into the pocket. Outside of the boot was good. Marshall made the most of it. 30 metres from goal. He'll be against the boundary line with a shot.
Absolutely, and we just spoke about Horn-Francis starting to get involved in this game in this third quarter. He's now up to 6 disposals, and what I really like about him, it's almost a bit sort of Dangerfield-like, isn't it? His ability to hit that stoppage with momentum, and he's really hard to stop. And on that example, really good hands, or off hands from the ruckman, just set Horn-Francis up with that momentum through the stoppage and drew the free kick, and a lovely finish inside forward 50 to hit Marshall.
Marshall is pretty much dead eye. He comes in and hits the right post. He kicked it exactly where he wanted for it to just curl in. Didn't quite make it. Port Adelaide, bad kicking, 7-16, plays 10-1. The margin 3 points in favour of the Bombers.
And what ends up happening with those misses, it just builds pressure on the next kick, and that's what Port Adelaide are encountering at the moment.
Bombers in defensive 50. Redmond receives it from Heppel and booms it up to centre wing. Back with the flight, Kelly did well. Marks in front of Burton, pointing long. He wants everyone to surge forward because he has nothing to kick to. Finally, Kelly will load up, heading to the scoreboard pocket. Bergman's alone, floating across. Nearly took it, just dropped it late. Front and square. Setterfield becomes the tackler on Bergman. Got it out towards Williams, kicks around the body and it works. Just floated up towards Burn-Jones. He gives it off to Burton. Port Adelaide have the same problem. Nothing's really ahead. 1-on-1 at left half forward. Dixon gets around Thatcher. He'll spin towards the 50, but there's no one on. He'll have to go all the way. Rioli's outnumbered 2-1 and kept out of it. And Langford will take the intercept mark.
Dumb kick.
Langford drops it in short to Parrish. still inside defensive 50 for the Bombers.
I think Crossy just had, I think it was Marshall. Was it Marshall all by himself inside the forward 50, but went long to a 2v1, not the option going inside 50.
Parrish comes out the broadcast side. Long spoil finds Perkins. Back he goes towards Redmond. Redmond, he didn't like it. He was going to centre it. Instead decided to go to Perkins. Handballed and then Perkins over his head down the line. It's punched over by Wines. Away from Menzie near the interchange gates. Jack Burketta is right down at that level.
Port Adelaide looks set to have made the sub. Frankie Evans coming on as we speak. Tom Jonas has headed back down into the rooms after that big collision earlier this quarter.
Not a great game for the pair. Well, sorry, not a great game for Jonas, who's playing in his 200th game with Boak, if you know what I mean.
I was going to say not a great game for Backman. Ridley and Jonas both subbed out with injuries now. Port Adelaide receive a free kick and turn to go. Horne-Francis, centre wing, had his leg taken out as he got boot to ball. Looks okay. Heads up to right half forward and it's spoiled over the boundary line. Phillips had that late smother, and I always get stressed when I see something like that because I immediately think Nathan Brown, and thankfully Horne-Francis is fine. We toss back into play right half forward for Port Adelaide. It's been all them really this third term. Just haven't capitalised. Down by 3. Bombers only have 1 goal this term to Port Adelaide's 2, but plenty of behinds as well. Off the ruck contest, Essendon clear it through Hobbs. It just sits up though. Forward of centre wing for Williams.
Great pressure from Horne-Francis just to affect that kick.
The panic clearance hasn't worked for the Bombers. Williams heads inside 50. His target was, I think, Boak, but he didn't fly. Heppel did instead. Takes it in the hole. The former skipper heads out to the right back pocket region. Hits up Langford. Looking good in defence, Kyle Langford. He was rotated there last week when Hawkins started to take over. Heads up to the eastern side. Don Tip and Woody on the lead. Bergman got there with the fist.
That was great closing speed by Bergman. Just his ability to read that, and Tip and Woody's pretty fast. So, Port Adelaide defence have really held up and stocked up this game, but it'd really be nice to see Port Adelaide get some reward for effort because it feels like they've got the momentum in their favour.
Time on in the third term. Bombers by just 3 points. Ball comes off the pack towards half forward to Hobbs for Essendon. Clears it out towards centre wing. Over Wiedemann's head. Williams is there for Port Adelaide. They seem to be able to get that loose ball and find loose players. It just wasn't happening in the first half. Butters goes short to Drew. Takes the mark just ahead of half forward. Goes long for Dixon. 1, 2, 3 grabs in the middle of the pack. Too big, too strong. He's just been able to use his weight and throw it around, and the big man's taken the mark.
Well, it's interesting. We just spoke before about if you continually miss, it just keeps building pressure on the next kick and the next kick and the next kick. And I'm looking at Dixon now. I'd like to get a heart rate monitor on him because I reckon he would be under the pump knowing how important this finish is for the power.
So for their first lead of the match, Dixon comes in and does what he's supposed to do. That's why you get the big bucks, Charlie. Port Adelaide hits the front by 3 points. 8-16-64. Essendon 10-1-61. We're 21 and a half minutes into the third term.
Well, it's interesting too, and if you just tuned in and looked at the statistics over the course of the game, and you would say Port Adelaide would be winning by 10 goals. Inside 50s, 48-29. This quarter is 18-6. They're dominating contested possessions. They've dominated statistically. They've just been unable to finish. And as we said, Dixon went back and nailed that goal. And the game, to me, just feels like it's about to break right open for Port Adelaide. They've dominated field position. As I said, they're dominating the inside 50s. Now it's just a matter of getting the cream on the cake and hitting the scoreboard with majors.
First lead change of the afternoon comes at the 21-minute mark of the third. Port up by 3. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff with you in the middle. Bounced off a couple of boots. Finally comes out from Parrish to Merritt. Spun by Butters in the tackle. Back to Parrish. Disposal was smothered by Finlayson. Merritt now wrestling for it with Butters. And holding the ball will be the call. I don't think he had any prior there, poor Zach Merritt. He gathered, turned into Butters. Port Adelaide free kick, and they're away. The handball to Horne-Francis, heads inside 50, Dixon clocks it. He's imposing himself on this game. Charlie Dixon, the aerial threat, marks 25 out, slight angle to the right.
You talk about Dixon imposing himself in the game. Butters has all game. And Horne-Francis, as we said a few minutes ago, really working into this game nicely. Now 8 disposals for the quarter.
Charlie Dixon looking for consecutive goals and to extend Port Adelaide's lead. Starts from 45. He'll kick from 35. He slips in the process. He won't mind. Celebrates on the turf. Port Adelaide fans love it. They're up by 9. 9-16-70. Plays 10-1-61. Time on in the third on Grandstand AFL. Jack Becketter on the boundary.
The Power have confirmed their captain, Tom Jonas, is not out of the game with concussion, but rather chest soreness.
Rightly so. It was a pretty big collision that he, as we said, ran into the knee of, I think it was one of the Essendon players in that marking contest early in that third quarter, running back with the flight of the ball. So I dare say be quite sort of mine.
Just quickly as well, Port Adelaide have had 12 of the last 13 scoring shots.
Yeah.
Either side of three-quarter time, or half-time rather.
As we said, even at the half-time break, it's only a matter of time. If you keep peppering the scoreboard, the tide will turn. It is still important when you line up, as Dixon has the last 2 opportunities, that you actually kick truly.
Oh, in the centre contest, Finlayson thought they'd recall it. Instead, it went to Draper. He took it on the chest, turned around, belted inside forward 50. McDonald Tip and Woody gave the hand pass off to Merritt on the snap for the minor score. Just the second minor score for Richmond this afternoon. Essendon, sorry. Richmond. How well am I going?
Had to catch you there.
Wrong
you got me
sash.
last week. 8-point game at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide clear it to the eastern side. Front position, Evans, the sub, couldn't claim it. Spilled to Stringer for the Bombers. Looked a handball out, held onto it in the end, and Drew wrapped him up. Should be holding the footy and is. Paid by Matthew Nichols. Free kick to the Power forward of left half back, kicking to the southern end. Still enough time in this third term. Off to Houston, then forward to Boak. We'll pop it over the top rather. Drew kept running, receives it behind left half forward. 50 looks fairly flooded. Drew's not sure what to do. Had Bergman at centre half forward if he looked inside. Instead, he'll go long. Up towards the top of the goal square. Finlayson caught behind. Good spoil from Langford. Straight down, though, towards Rosie, who gives it off towards Houston. Houston heads towards goal. Butters used the body, but almost bumped Merritt into it and takes the intercept mark in the defensive goal square.
So McGrath comes out to the broadcast side. Heppel was at the back, couldn't take it. It comes away to Horne-Francis, so he's surrounded by 4, really. He couldn't get out of that one, and he didn't. Eventually he was taken down by Hobbs. He's got the job of running with him, I think. So Bombers from half back on this broadcast side. Hobbs goes short and wide to Hine. It's just slow play now for the Bombers. Momentum totally with Port Adelaide. Hine down the line with a kick. Wiedemann was got rid of early by Alia, who took the intercept possession with the mark. Back he goes slightly towards McKenzie, diagonally across the square. He couldn't get it to Boak on time. McDonald Tip and Woody dived on the ball. Ball came out eventually. Shield was there. Forward hand pass to Setterfield. Looking, finding Langford with a hand pass. Took his time. Short pass. McDonald Tip and Woody was tackled immediately. Fell to Kelly. He was tackled immediately by Rioli. Rosie picked it up and he went wide to Houston.
Fast break footy. Houston heads up towards the left forward pocket. Dixon in front position. Nearly pulled it in with one arm. Zerk Thatcher gathers on the bounce. A handball to exit the 50. Long towards Parrish. Now forward to Caldwell. Gets it back to Parrish. Through the centre square go the Bombers. Pearson kick up to half forward. Gathered by Stringer. Had a runner on the outside. Gives it to Merritt. He's all alone. Can race to 40 and instead unselfishly centred it towards Wiedemann, who hands it forward to Menzie. Can run into the open goal and give Essendon a much needed major. Back down to a 2-point game. It was messy, but they just kept forcing it forward. Menzie has his first of the contest in his 9th game, the former Panther. And Essendon advanced to 11-2-68. Port Adelaide 9-16-70. Still 2 minutes to play in the third on Grandstand AFL.
You talk about momentum shifts, and Port Adelaide have probably had it for the better half of the past half, but that's what Essendon can do. They can score so quickly, and it was actually probably the way Port Adelaide entered their forward 50 before. Butters actually got burnt on the outside, and Essendon were actually able to counteract to the other side, and excellent composure and caught Port Adelaide defence offline, and Menzies literally runs into an open goal. Port Adelaide will be really disappointed with that, considering they've had a majority of the momentum.
In the middle, Wines working hard at the foot of the ruckman. Ball held in tight. It came out from Caldwell, I think it was, to Parrish, who went high. It's out towards centre wing, and Boak forced his man Setterfield under the ball and took it on the chest. Down to half forward he goes with a spot kick looking for Powell Pepper. Took it full-chested, missed it. Setterfield almost met with the wrath of Powell Pepper. Instead he got the hand pass out and the Bombers go forward. Aliir, too good for Wiedemann. Intercept mark straight away inside to Williams. He's at half-back.
Hasn't been his best afternoon, Aliir, but that was important. Up towards Wines in the square. Handed it off. Running by Williams. Poor kick. Just didn't put anything on it. Tried to be casual towards Finlayson. Ended up hitting Parrish. Now they're surging. Perkins heads towards the 50 for the Bombers. Wiedemann comes across and takes the mark. 35 out. 45-degree angle to the left. A chance to put Essendon back in front.
And this is where it's going to catch them.
Yeah.
Port Adelaide have had all the momentum. They've kicked 9-16 with Essendon 11-2. And they're showing that they're executing their goals. I mean, Wiedemann will probably strike this, not sure for Port fans, but it's just their ability to keep themselves into the game due to Port Adelaide's inaccuracy.
And it's interesting, even 3 or 4 minutes ago, before the goal that they just kicked, they looked out on their feet, Essendon. All of a sudden, they've got their mojo back, and they're back in this contest.
On the three-quarter time siren, Wiedemann leans back on the kick. It's too far right. And gifts Port Adelaide the lead at three-quarter time by a point. 9-16-70. The Bombers 11-3-69. Goal scorers heading into the final term for Essendon. 2 to Langford, Wiedemann. Singles to Caldwell, Merritt, Hobbs, Perkins, Stringer, McDonald, Tipungwuti and Menzies. For Port Adelaide, 2 to Burne-Jones and Dixon. Singles to Palpepper, Marshall, Boak, Rioli and McEntee. Grandstand finish coming your way. Should be a thriller to kickstart the Sunday triple header with Collingwood and Sydney to come and North Melbourne and St Kilda following that. Great to have you with us for it on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. This is Grandstand AFL.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stack, and if you like great stories and you enjoy sport, then I reckon you need ABC Sport Daily in your life.
He's 35, I'm 36, so I'm cheering for him. It always makes me feel like I got a little something left in the tank for pickup games.
Dills and Gill have both been tied at the hip in terms of a very strong friendship and a great working relationship as well.
You can't build a shed in footy for $750 million.
Love a bit of country footy.
It's a daily sports conversation, and it's called ABC Sport Daily. Find us on the ABC Listen app.
Grandstand AFL.
Now streaming every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Now Boak arched the back but couldn't get away from Martin. Managed to get a disposal out, not sure how clean it was. Back to Horne-Francis, who turns. Retreats to Houston at centre half forward. Breaks away from Caldwell. Heads into the right forward pocket. Palpepper's at the back. Takes the chest mark. Palpepper curls it through. His first of the afternoon. Rosie can turn and race through the circle up towards the 50. Marshall front position had 3 bites and just lost it late. Almost pulled away from it. Essendon have it in defensive 50. Martin heads up towards Hobbs behind centre wing. Now up to left half forward. 2-on-2 awaits. Burton brought it to ground. Stringer can gather though. Underground handball in the path of Menzies. Put it back in the path of Stringer. The package gathers from 25. Snaps and finishes.
Butters at the bottom of the pack after the Bombers got first touch on the ball. Parrish with a hand pass away. McGrath taken down in a tackle. Turned over. It comes to Boak from 40. There's a goal.
Merritt now wrestling for it, and holding the ball will be the call. I don't think he had any prior there for Zach Merritt. Port Adelaide free kick, and they're away. The handball to Horne-Francis. Heads inside 50. Dixon clocks it. Charlie Dixon looking for consecutive goals. Starts from 45. He'll kick from 35. He slips in the process. He won't mind.
The 2023 AFL season.
On radio,
ABC Sport Digital.
and now streaming on the ABC Listen app.
Thrilling finish coming your way on Grandstand AFL. The Bombers led for nearly 3/4 of footy. Just relented as we headed into the final change. Port Adelaide had a run of 12 of 13 scoring shots, 4 goals to 2 to take the lead, and they're up by a point as we head into the final term. 9-16-70 to the Bombers, 11-3-69. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you. All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, 5-time All-Australian Ebony Marinoff with us in the box as well. Jack Paqueta on the boundary. There's been plenty happening. Tom Jonas subbed out of the game with a chest injury, so Francis Evans is into the game, and Jordan Ridley subbed out with concussion. He will miss the game against Brisbane next Saturday. And into the 22 came Jai Menzie, who kicked a goal in the third quarter. The Collingwood and Sydney game is still 8 minutes away for Bounce Down. If you do want to hear it, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. Otherwise, we'll take you there following this contest at the Adelaide Oval. For those listeners who are on the AFL Extra button, you will depart us following this contest, and then after a short break, you'll head to the Docklands for the start of North Melbourne and St Kilda. Josh, Ebbs, anyone's game right now. How do you see it playing out?
Well, it's almost copy and paste from what we said at half-time. Port Adelaide dominated field position. Statistically, the inside 50s that quarter were 21-8 in favour of the Power, but they couldn't convert. They found a bit of their rhythm through Dixon hitting a couple of majors, but how often do you see it when a side dominates inside 50s? They dominate scoring shots. They don't capitalise. The opposition then go down and convert to make it a real contest. And as you said, we do have a contest on our hands now. The game halfway through that third quarter threatened to blow wide open in favour of Port Adelaide. Essendon were able to hang in there again through inaccuracies from the Power, but the message from Scott at three-quarter time to his Chargers is we're right in this contest again.
And I think what that quarter was, it was quite even around the contest. It was 34-33 contested possessions and 7-8 to the clearances. So Port Adelaide need to really execute those inside 50s, because you can't be having 15 plus more inside 50s and not getting goals on the scoreboard, because you're going to lose the game. But one thing Port will take from it is their ability to, I guess, keep the ball inside their forward half, get repeat entries inside the forward 50, but they need to execute. But it's going to be a great last quarter, and we probably knew that coming into the game, that this was going to be a battle, and we've got a 1 point game heading into the final quarter.
And the thing about Essendon too is they're such a dynamic team that, through hands at stoppage and their ability to run and create and get speed on the ball and look dangerous moving forward.
Quickly.
Absolutely, they can. So that's a real danger. I reckon Ken Hinkley would be a little bit concerned about that. So if Port Adelaide's pressure drops around the scramble and around the contest, they do have the ability to score and score quickly.
A lot on the line in this final term. The live ladder has the Power inside the top 4 and the Bombers in 9th. If you flip the margin, Essendon are in the 8th, Port Adelaide are outside of the contenders. Plenty to play out. The Power up by 1, 9-16-70 to 11-3-69. So the major ball winners for the contest, Parrish has 31 for Essendon, Merritt with 18 and Langford with 15. For Port Adelaide, Butters and Rosie 23 apiece, Williams with 20 to his name as well. Strap yourselves in. Should be a fun finish at the Adelaide Oval. Port by 1. Draper in the middle. Finlayson now in as well. Nice high bounce. Draper wins it down straight to Shield, entangled in the tackle from Horne-Francis. Slapped forward. Gathered by Houston. He's wrapped up by the big ruck. Draper, who brings him to ground. We'll get a ball up inside the Bombers attacking 50.
Big fella was good there, wasn't he? That's his trademark though, isn't it? His follow-up, and he's hunted the footy. Big Draper.
Well, he's hunted it all the way to a forward 50 entry. Now he just slaps it a little bit forward out of the ruck. Burton picks it up for Port Adelaide. Clears the area. And McGrath has the better of the contest out there. Took it away from McEntee, but towards the boundary line. And that's what won out in the end. So we get a throw in on this broadcast side. Breeze is picked up, favouring Port Adelaide in this final quarter to that northern end of the Adelaide Oval.
Draper wrapped up with Teakle this time. Won it down to Parrish. Now Merritt races through the square. Heads inside 50. Bit high for Stringer. Got a hand to it. Bounces just inside the field of play. Menzie can't control it. We'll get a boundary throw in. 35 out, right forward pocket. Riverbank stand end for the Bombers. Crowd almost this nervous silence. Plenty in attendance despite the weather today in Adelaide. Toss back into play. Draper caught behind Teakle, who won it down straight to Merritt though. A handball in hope. Central about 20 out. Fumble though by Williams. McDonald and Woody couldn't capitalise. Aaliyah picks it up, almost legged by Wiedemann. His handball sold Bergman into a fair bit of trouble. He's wrapped up by Setterfield. Ball up left forward pocket.
Just looking off the ball too, Butters looks like he's in a little bit of trouble, holding his right knee.
Umpire got all tangled up with his legs. That brought a bit of mirth from the crowd. He throws it up now. Ball to ground. Tippenwood, he just forced his way through, and then off the boot it hit Teakle right in the face. Couple of Port Adelaide players down. Through came Rosie. Flipped a hand pass up to Houston, I think it was, who got it in the end, and he probably wished he hadn't because Stringer had him straight away, and he went not quite face first into the turf. Another ball up, still inside 50 for the Bombers. Draper knocks it down. Bergman kicks it away for Port Adelaide outside defensive 50.
Butters making his way to the benches, can't put any weight on his right leg. He's had an issue with medials in the past. Picked up by Essendon outside 50, finds its way off towards Perkins, pushed as he kicked it. It's heading all the way home. How has he finished that? Magnificent from the junior. Puts Essendon up by 5. Perkins from 50 just rode it home. Essendon 12-3, 75. Port Adelaide 9-16, 70. Early stages of the final term. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
Port Adelaide's Zach Butters in real trouble here. He eventually made his way off the ground and pointed to his right knee. The doctors are assessing him now.
That's not good news for Port Adelaide. But more so, I guess more importantly, Essendon, to start this final quarter, they've already gone inside 53 times. And as we said, they do have the ability to score quickly. So Port Adelaide need to address this momentum, this little momentum swing in favour of the Bombers currently, and get their hands on the footy around the stoppage and the scramble, and again get it inside their forward 50 and try to maintain some field position.
Couple of goals for Perkins and out of the middle. Big Draper again. Takes it off the ruck contest, runs his full measure, top of the square with a kick. Ball comes to the front, Stringer releases a hand pass towards Davey. Gave it back to Stringer, outside of the right boot. Oh, it's hit the post.
Oh, goodness, Crossy.
That was amazing. He was falling backwards as he kicked it. Just hit the post for the minor score. 8-point lead for Essendon. 6-point lead for Essendon.
Tell you what, he'd be one of those enigmas, the coach, wouldn't he, Stringer? I reckon he'd frustrate you, but he can do some magical stuff.
He looks ready to explode.
Yeah.
As does Sam Draper. He's really imposing himself on this last quarter. He probably would have been a little bit disappointed with his third quarter, and he's going to come out to play to get these Essendon over the line if they're going to win, because he'll be a massive part of that.
You could almost hear a collective groan as Draper took it out of the middle there. He's just dominating the clearances. Port Adelaide have chipped it around defensive 50 and now finally exit. Kick from Williams finds Horn Francis at left half back. Broadcast wing. They're kicking to the northern end, the home side. Almost look a little uncertain though. Horn Francis will go long, up to a pack, close to the centre square. Front position, good mark from Teakle. Just got in front of Redmond, stood his ground, pulled it in. True centre wing, bit slow to give it off. Finally Horn Francis running by receives. Kick up towards left half forward to Boak. He'll chip it over the top. Wines is all alone close to the boundary line. Quiet afternoon for him. He'll go back here. Too far out to score, you'd think, so he'll run around Caldwell on the mark and centre his kick. Just popped it up in the path of McEntee, entangled with McGrath, couldn't control it. Draper now hands it off to Redmond, then Caldwell kicks back where it came from. Port have numbers. Burton just couldn't quite get there and had to almost smother the footy into the turf. He gathers and is wrapped up by Shield, spun and holding the footy.
Wow, how much prior opportunity was there?
Not sure there was, unless you count the fact he just didn't dive for the mark. Shield now looks to switch out to McDonald, Tippin Woody Eastern side. Gives it off. Kelly forward. Menzie.
They've got their run back, Essendon.
Setterfield now centre wing. Called to play on. Heads towards the 50. Setterfield's kick is long on Francis, or Bergman rather, in the hole. May have actually pulled up a bit short here with the calf. He's floated in the air and taken the intercept mark and immediately hobbled. So Port looking a little proppy late. No Jonas, maybe no Butters, and Bergman cramping a little bit here.
Goes long to centre wing with a kick. Finds turf somehow. Redmond got it. Hand pass was a stray. Comes to Rioli. Rioli with a wide hand pass for McEntee. McEntee at half forward. Sends it long for Port Adelaide. Looking for that matchup. Zirk Thatcher against Dixon. Ball comes to ground. Heppel releases. Did well. McGrath outside of the foot. Could only find Finlayson. Finlayson with a snap and the goal. Port Adelaide hit back and draw level. Port 10-16, 76. Essendon 12-4, 76. It's a shootout at the Adelaide Oval in this last quarter. 6.5 down.
Well, there was a couple of opportunities that Sam Draper imposed himself a little bit before, and you could see Jeremy Finlayson just a little bit disappointed, arguing with the umpires on a couple of the calls. But for him to turn around and, I guess, impose himself after probably having the lesser minutes, really impressive. And we really do have a game on our hands.
Jack Paqueta, how's Zach Butters looking?
It's good news so far. Zach Butters looks as though he's going to try and give it a go. They've had him on the bike, trying to keep it moving, doing a couple of little run-throughs at the moment. He's going to give it a go and see how it goes.
Scores level. In the 35 meetings between these two sides, there's never been a draw. Anyone's game right now. In the middle, Teakle wins it down, looking for Horn Francis. Bounced in front of Draper. Got boot to ball about a couple of metres, as did Shield. Cut off by Houston. Handball to Boak. In a phone box, he turns it over. Gave it to Merritt. Spears it into the 50. Wiedemann nearly clunked it on the chest. Did well to get a handball out. Charging through, Hobbs can't control it. We'll get a ball up. Centre half forward for Essendon. Scores level at 76 apiece.
Game in the balance. Port Adelaide's momentum in the third quarter has gone, and now it's just an absolute battle on the ground. Ball just comes out, finds Draper. Oh, he skips around to the right foot, and he goes with the outside of the foot and hits the base of the goalpost. Oh, maybe he should have gone with the right foot.
Yep.
And not decided to step inside, but the minor score, and that gives Essendon back the lead just by that 1 point. We've gone through 8 minutes in the final term.
Well, as Ebony said, he's threatening to be the game breaker, Draper.
And I think he loves it. You know, you can see players that love to be that star and, you know, man up. And, yeah, he's having an immense last quarter. I like that Teakle's gone with him because it means Finlay's been released, speed down forward.
Long ball from Burton, found Finlayson centre wing, gave it off to Wines. He kicks towards the 50, just a little wide of his target. It rolls over the boundary line in the scoreboard pocket. Port Adelaide 10-16-76, Essendon 12-5-77. So 1 point lead at the moment after that, Draper behind. Inside the 50 for the Power though, at the northern end. Dixon took it out of the ruck, gave it straight to McGrath. Handball smothered, ricochet to Drew. Tight angle, Bonner snaps towards the top of the goal square. Palpepper wrapped up with Kelly, it clears both. Bounces through for a minor score. And we're tied up once again. That's 77 apiece. I may do a score review here. Not really sure why. Maybe it may have collected the left-hand behind post and possibly a boundary throw-in.
This irritates me.
A score review for a minor score.
Well, the boundary umpire was right on the post. Surely he can make the call. The goal umpire's called for the review, but he wasn't within 10 metres of
I mean, if it is a throw-in, it will be a huge win for Port Adelaide, that being in their inside 50.
Yeah.
If they can keep that inside their forward half. I mean, yeah, this is what you mean. You just don't know what the ARC's got. You don't know what the MRO's got. Too many people having too-minute decisions.
The camera angles are woeful as well. I'm not really sure we're going to learn much from any of them, really. 10 minutes into the final term here at the Adelaide Oval. It's a standstill as we await a decision. It could really impact the margin.
Look at the goal the boundary umpire's right there.
Decision on scoreboard.
I believe they said it does make contact with the post. So I reckon we may get a boundary throw in here.
They've got an angle we haven't seen then.
Umpire's call is the decision, which is a minor score.
Wow.
So it is a tie ball game, 77 apiece. Early stages of the final term on Grandstand AFL as McGrath brings it back into play with a long ball to the broadcast wing.
Phillips from behind knocks it down for the Bombers. Ball on the ground. Boak slips it forward. Gave it to Rosie. And then off to Burton, and he was just caught in the wrong position to try that kick and sent it out on the full as a result.
Puts his hand up to apologise to his teammates as well.
So it'll be Kelly for Essendon. Steps inside the field, plays on. Long down the line. Oh, Phillips is virtually by himself. Well, he couldn't take it. I thought his arm may have been dragged then. Umpire call play on. Teakle had it. Now Phillips has got it. Hand passed it back. Bombers under pressure. Martin picks it up in the middle of the pack. Got it away to Shield. Good pace. And then looks sideways for the hand pass. Found Redmond. Off to Merritt. They move it from this side of the ground out to the eastern side. Redmond under pressure though. Couldn't pull it in. Gets some support from Merritt. Setterfield was there as well. Now Redmond gets another opportunity. Ball on the ground. Port Adelaide turn it over and they'll go forward.
Rosie to Rioli, speared it towards Dixon a bit too high, runs down Zerk Thatcher in the tackle, though he stood back up. Handball off to Langford, then receives it again. Zerk Thatcher will clear with a spiral up the eastern side. Front position though, winds, marks and goes. Back inside 50 for Port Adelaide. Finlayson's on the lead and takes it. The Brownlow medalist stands up when needed. Hasn't been his afternoon. But a scoring opportunity for Jeremy Finlayson. Man on the mark, 30 out. Side angle to the right. It will give Port Adelaide the lead if it's any score.
And a great inside 50 there, as you said, Aaron, with Ollie Wines, with that kick to Finlayson. If it wasn't perfect and it came to ground, they did have the outnumber there, Essendon, but Finlayson able to take the uncontested mark and needs to go back and finish off.
Finlayson comes in, kicks on the left, misses to the right-hand side. Tail of the afternoon for Port Adelaide, 10-18-78 as they take a 1-point lead over the Bombers, 12-5-77. 13 minutes into the final term on Grandstand AFL. Your experts, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff.
Redmond brings the ball in short to Parrish. Handball received then for Redmond. Tries to go short. He misses his man Hobbs, and nipping in there was Drew for Port Adelaide. He's outside defensive 50. And he just takes his time. Was going to go short. Bombers flood back.
Has he got the journey, Crossy? Wind over his right shoulder?
I don't think so. And he doesn't think so too. He drops it in short for Dixon. Ball comes off hands. Rosie with a snap. There it is. Port Adelaide you break it into a 7-point lead. 11-18-84. Essendon 12-5-77. It's nip and tuck in the final quarter. But after 13 and a half minutes, Port have got a little bit of a break.
That's just excellent crumbing. You almost knew that Drew didn't have the distance, and Charlie Dixon just to impact that and have Connor Rosie at his feet. And Zach Butters comes onto the ground now, and Connor Rosie and Zach Butters have been prolific for Port Adelaide this game, and their contested possessions are high. They've got 12 and 11 each, so if they're going to win this game, they need those around the football.
And it's almost a set play from Port Adelaide, and we've seen that in the first 4 or 5 rounds of this season. Just that little three-quarter kick inside forward 50. The forwards know it. It gives them a chance to run and compete in the air, and they had the ground cover in Rosie to kick the goal.
Port by 7. Finlayson won it down and did his own crumbing as well. Inside 50, Marshall running out. Back with the flight, Redmond, incredibly brave. Takes the contested mark to cut it off in defensive 50. Heads out to the eastern side. Kelly marks just inside the defensive arc, then exits to Heppel. He'll turn up towards left half back. Mark taken closer towards centre wing by Martin. Not a lot ahead of him. Everyone's on the eastern wing. So he'll have to go long up towards half forward. Port Adelaide have the numbers in the air. On Francis flies and takes the intercept mark behind centre wing. Wanted to go inside. Don Tipperwoody was waiting for him, so hold things up. Horn Francis now heads out to the boundary line. Finds Bergman.
Bergman backs up. Port Adelaide content to hold some possession just for a little while. They got a 7-point lead. Down the line goes the kick. And Rioli came, met it, couldn't take it. On the ground, Caldwell got a hand pass out. Finally, they work it clear. Oh, Big Phillips, the ruckman, received it, lost it straight away, fumbled. Burn-Jones back inside forward 50 with a kick. Bounces just short of the boundary line in that scoreboard pocket and over. And Port Adelaide's crowd has eventually arrived here at the Adelaide Oval. 36,247 in the house. Didn't look like anywhere near that after an accident sort of slowed down people getting here for the start of the game.
Toss back in. Dixon won it down to Palpepper. Rioli with some magic. The check side finish. He seizes the moment. Rioli has given Port Adelaide a 13-point lead and has the damn wall burst at the Adelaide Oval. Port up 12-18-90, Essendon 12-5-77. Some Rioli magic on the big stage. Your experts, Josh Franco, Ebony Marinoff with 10 minutes to play.
Well, I reckon there's a couple of things there. Powell Pepper was outstanding, and I reckon if you're a small defender on a guy like Powell Pepper or a guy like Rioli at those stoppages, you're on high alert, and it's really difficult to stop momentum if they're getting clean hit from the ruck contest, which they did on that occasion through Dixon. The other thing, I reckon if you're an Essendon supporter, you'd be really frustrated that Draper... The game's almost swung a little bit. As soon as he went forward and now he's on the bench in the hands of the physio, the game has swung momentum back in favour of Port Adelaide. So if I'm in the Essendon coaching box, I'm getting Draper on as soon as I possibly can.
Phillips got the tap down out of the middle, though. Now he receives the hand pass from Parrish. Parrish is buffeted, can't get a clean disposal. It's still inside the centre square. Ball on the ground, comes out towards Shield, bursts clear, takes a bounce. Arcs a hand pass over the top to Perkins, inside 50 only just though. Port Adelaide through Drew, forward hand pass to Butters. Wide he goes to Burne-Jones, drops it in short and trying to find McEntee. Heppel came late, knocked it over the boundary line, centre wing, eastern side of the Adelaide Oval, and it's a very good advantage, a very handy advantage halfway through this last quarter. 13 points for Port Adelaide.
Game underway at the MCG. Collingwood leads Sydney by 6 early stages. Toss back in. Phillips won it down for the Bombers. Straight to Burne-Jones, though. Clearance for Port Adelaide up to right half forward. Marshall a bit late in his approach. Off hands, spilled to Evans. Kicks around the body. Heading for Dixon. Clears both he and Zerk Thatcher. Redmond's at the back. Caught in the tackle. Did enough to paddle it to Zerk Thatcher. Clearing kick for Essendon. Hits it up towards Heppel. 2-on-1. Spoilt by Butters to ground. He gathers. Port Adelaide with a little stinky kick up towards Rosie. Rosie marks 55 out. Wants to go back and kill some time.
Similar distance to Drew with his previous inside 50. So again, watch for that little three-quarter kick from Rosie here.
Surely he's too far out here, but he's lining up for the 55. Set shot. Man on the mark is 55 out. So Connor Rosie will kick from 60. Instead, he sets it up, as you said, Josh. His kick intended for Dixon, but sitting in the hole. Setterfield knew exactly where it was going and cuts it off for Essendon in defensive 50. They're down by 13 points. We're at the 18-minute mark of the final term, rather.
He went to Zerk Thatcher on this broadcast side, then to Redmond. He tried to pick off a kick down the line, missed. Picked up by Wines, hand passed into the legs of an opponent. Now he's caught with the ball on the ground. Did he drag it in? No, said the umpire. So near the interchange gates, we get a ball up. Time for a few interchanges. On comes Draper for the Bombers. Phillips stays in the ruck though. Draper just edges a bit forward. Ball comes down to Parrish, kicks it to Draper. Takes a mark. Plays on immediately outside to Hobbs. Hand pass over the top into space for Caldwell. Inside 50, he goes with a kick with a goal. Not quite. Aaliyah stretched back there and just got his left hand to the ball. Millimetres in it. Minor score. 12 points the margin, still in favour of Port Adelaide. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
Well, as Sammy Draper comes on, Jeremy Finlayson goes off for a rest and Phillips has drifted forward. Looks like it is Teakle versus Draper.
Aaliyah heads long up the corridor. Intended for Teakle, couldn't control it. Merritt gathers, sends it back where it came from. Stringer flies over his head. Aaliyah couldn't take it at the back either. Bergman brought down Stringer without it. Aaliyah gathers, hands it off to Williams. Now Burne-Jones. Stringer nearly got him, almost high. Shrugged the tackle, got it back to Williams. Now Houston skies it up towards centre wing, broadcast side. Evans in the contest, brought to ground, gathered, kick smothered. Redmond did well. They're claiming it's deliberate off Redmond's boot, but it was actually his quad. And it'll be a boundary throw in, true centre wing, right in front of us.
Just a look at the replay, maybe off his knee. But anyway, ball's thrown back in. Teakle got it down. Butters with a hand pass out to Wines, trying to force his way through the pack. Ball went in the air. Houston just slapped it forward. Bombers take over, and they work it through their hands, and then finally wide for Hobbs. Wondered what he was going to do. Gave it to McGrath in the end down the line. Well read by Aaliyah, but he'll have to surrender it because the kicker was pushed in the back. Now it's inside 50. It's to Stringer off the outside of the right foot. Has kicked the goal. Of course he has. Capable of the amazing. Jake Stringer gets the goal. His second of the afternoon. And Essendon get one back. It's a 6-point game. 13-6-84 the Bombers. Port Adelaide 12-18-90. We're into time on in the final term.
I think you saw last week with Essendon, they kept coming. I mean, Geelong had an incredible game, but they know that they can keep themselves into the game, and they've shown that over the past few weeks. They haven't really taken home the 4 points, but their ability to score quick and have big game winners, match winners, stand up is why they're still in this, and also to Port's inaccuracy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing as well is, and I know the Port Adelaide crowd a little bit disappointed with the down the field. It definitely was in the back, probably line ball, whether it's down the field or come back to where McGrath was pushed.
6-point game, Port Adelaide up. Teakle won it down. Parrish with the crumb. Clears it up towards half forward. Caldwell back with the flight. Marks it just outside the paint. Doesn't look confident. He'll head towards the top of the goal square. He's got a lead from Wiedemann. Phillips flew, couldn't quite bring it to ground. Almost had it on the second bite. And now wrapped up. Bergman forces the ball up right forward pocket. Phillips will take the ruck contest. 15 out, Teakle's late. Keeps him out of it. Wines gathers, gives it off to McKenzie. Booming clearance, but the Bombers have numbers sitting back. Merritt at half forward intercepts. One kick away from an opportunity at goal.
Draper's lurking too.
Merritt goes with a dirty ball inside 50. Stringer picks it up, had a shot at goal, but the ball was off the hands of McKenzie, and Port Adelaide able to clear away. Wines at the bottom of the pack, got it to Marshall. He just goes for distance. Kelly picks it up, gives it to Merritt for Essendon. Goes down the line with a kick to Martin. Hand passes off to Hind. Inside forward 50. And the mark taken by Langford. And he'll go back from 40 out on a wide out. He'll start from just near the boundary line with his kick.
I think if you're a Port Adelaide supporter, just when you think you're feeling comfortable, Essendon just keep coming, don't they? They just don't give up. They just keep running and create scoring opportunities. Big kick this one, though.
The Bombers. Can they land one? From wide out to the booze. Langford goes high. He goes long. And he just goes a little left for the minor score. It's a 5-point game. 23 minutes down in the final quarter on Grandstand AFL. Neil Cross, Aaron Bryans, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff with you. Jack Paquetta is on the boundary.
Essendon with the last 3 scoring shots. Peppering away. Burne-Jones goes to Houston. He'll clear defensive 50. Front position, the fly from Teakle. Spoilt away by Draper. At the toes of Horne-Francis. Wrapped up by Setterfield. It was high. Free kick to the power youngster. Forward of left half back. He'll look inside. Short kick finds Burton. Up towards the square. His intended target. Wines wasn't expecting it. He did well to gather on the bounce anyway. Hands it forward. Marshall gathers. Puts it in the path of Finlayson. He can gather on the arc. Close to the boundary. Left forward pocket. His kick is tight. And it just sat up a little too long for Pal Pepper.
Free kick. Essendon.
Heppel came across. And he received the free kick. It looked like he fisted it over the boundary line, and Pal Pepper's obviously impeded him in the contest, giving him a bit of afters possibly. So it's a free kick to the former skipper. And Essendon looked to clear.
Heppel goes down the line and high. And coming late was Phillips, took a strong mark ahead of Marshall. Phillips is still at right half back though. Oh, he looks centrally. The ruckman sets it up and he gets away with it. McGrath top of the arc. So McGrath's got the mark. Parrish comes for him, decides against that. Plays on now, goes long. Phillips is there. He won't get to the contest, nor will Draper. Ball comes to Houston. Releases it to Burne-Jones. Sideways with his tumble kick. Found Bonner. Bonner was careful with his. And a good kick finds Marshall near the interchange gates, and he's slowing things down for Port Adelaide. We've gone through 25 and a half minutes in the final term, and it's Port by 5 points.
Marshall heads long, up towards the 50. 3-on-3 awaits. McEntee underneath at front position, spoilt away. Spills to the back. Kelly gives it off towards Phillips. Did he walk it over the line in the turn? Boundary umpire thinks so. Crossy doesn't. What do you reckon, Neil?
I was watching the boundary umpire further down the ground.
One in front of me.
He let it
immediately
go.
set out.
Yeah,
boundary throw in to come. Left half forward for the Power. Over at the G, time on in the first. Collingwood by 12 over Sydney. Toss back in. Draper wrapped up with Finlayson, who stuck a boot out and managed to put it in the path of Rosie. Gets it to Wines. Handball back to Butters. Wheels. Heads inside 50. He's looking for Pau Pepper, who bursts into the pack. Bounced off Phillips. It spills to Rioli. Junior Rioli misses. Minor score on the left-hand side. 6-point game once again. And Essendon don't want to waste any time. There's 3 minutes on the clock and they've turned it over. Zach Thatcher played on and kicked it straight back to Junior Rioli, who marks on the paint of 50 straight in front.
I tell you what, the kick from Thatcher, if he had hit it, they were out, Essendon. Just had to hit the target. Rioli did it superbly, just read it, intercept, and once again needs to finish this goal.
Junior Rioli starts in the centre square to ice the game. Comes in, Rioli from 55, everything on it, but it's across the face and a minor score. It's a pivotal point though. It makes it a 2-kick game for the Bombers. Enough time for it. Port Adelaide by 7 in the dying stages. And straight up the spine goes McGrath.
With a hand pass, he goes across to Merritt. Merritt out the back looking for Draper. Port Adelaide have 3-on-1. Draper got a foot to the pull. He did brilliantly. Essendon get away with it. They're running through Hind. Hind inside 50 with his kick wide out. Langford marks it. 45 from goal. Hard against the boundary line.
How good was Draper?
Just amazing.
That was unbelievable.
Leaning on a Port Adelaide opponent. He was against 3 and threw a left foot at the ball.
And landed in a teammate's hand.
Langford plays on, comes inside, sends it as long as he can. It's right on the line. Phillips had the hands up and it's knocked through by Burton. 6-point game. It's on the line again. As a draw is a possibility. These two teams have never had a draw.
Port have 2 minutes to try and avoid an error here in the dying stages and hold on to their lead. Out to the right back pocket they go. Houston has it, called to play on. He'll bang it long to the eastern side. Front position, Evans had some space, takes it on the chest. Merritt just completely lost the flight of the footy and let him go. The former Cat behind centre wing. Again, we'll just send it for territory up to right half forward. Dixon's outnumbered, so he'll fist it towards the boundary line. It worked in the end because Bergman was waiting there. Tried to get it off to Bonner. He fumbled. Dixon now gives it to Butters. Kicks inside 50. Tried to get it to Rioli. It was a little too wide. And takes a bounce over the boundary line.
And what I will say, both sides, all sides in the AFL practice this sort of last 2-3 minutes of a game. If they're up by a goal, down by a goal. So cool heads will prevail for both teams in this last minute and a half of play.
Well, I think that's a lot to ask too, Josh.
Yeah, true.
Ball comes back in. Phillips with a tap down. It went to Zerk Thatcher, cleared the area. Back towards centre wing it goes for Essendon. Ball comes to Stringer, slips it to Draper. Draper hand passes to himself, taken to the ground, and umpire said that's holding. Free kick to the ruckman. He was outnumbered about 6-1 that time. He looks inside, decides just to belt one high, and it does go high. It goes really high, and Phillips pulls down the mark. He's a long way out though. So it was ruckman to ruckman doing the job for the Bombers. And I'll tell you what, that was a bomb. It was a real bomb that found the hands of Phillips. 45 from goal.
Will Port Adelaide's inaccuracy, they've kicked 12 goals, 20, cost them the game.
Phillips kicking into the breeze, protected a little by the Riverbank stand. The question is, does he have the distance? Phillips comes in, sends it high, doesn't have the distance, lands in the goal square. Port Adelaide try to punch it away. Instead, it goes through for the minor score. I don't think it was touched in the end. So it's a 5-point game in favour of the Power. 30 and a half minutes into the final quarter.
Burton in charge of bringing it back in. Clock against Essendon. Burton heads to the eastern side. He's looking for Dixon. Phillips underneath it, nearly claimed it. Spills to the back to Merritt. There's a whistle for a hold, and it's going Port Adelaide's way. That may just hand them the victory. The ball will be given to Charlie Dixon, and he'll kick back towards Marshall. They'll hold it up in defensive 50. 36,000, loving every second. Marshall goes long. up towards centre wing to a pack. It bounces off the chest of Zerk Thatcher. Hine kicks it along the deck as far as Dixon. Port Adelaide hang on. They win a thriller at the Adelaide Oval to make it 5 in a row and move into the top 4 on the live ladder with St Kilda still to play. Port Adelaide did everything they could to possibly lose it with their inaccuracy, but they get over the line by 5 points over the Bombers. The Bombers were certainly up for the fight. They led by 15 at quarter time, 14 at the half before they let Port Adelaide right back in. The Power up by a point at three-quarter time, and it looked like their inaccuracy was going to cost them. Essendon got as close as a point, really, or they leveled the scores at the 10-minute mark. Port Adelaide, through Junior Rioli, able to recapture the lead and hold on in the dying stages, 12-20-92 to 13-9-87. 2 goals to Rioli, Dixon and Burn-Jones. Singles to Palpepper, Marshall, Boak, Finlayson, Rosie and McEntee. Port Adelaide 6-2, the Bombers 4-4. Port fans can dare to dream once again. They're inside the top 4 and certainly part of the contending pack now with 5 victories in a row. And the Bombers once again good against the best, but just not enough to get themselves over the line after previous close games against Collingwood and Geelong. It is Port Adelaide by 5 points in the end. Gee, Essendon did everything they could to get there, but it wasn't enough. To break it all down, Josh Franco and Ebony Marinoff.
Well, it's interesting. If you looked at how the game unfolded, early in that first quarter, we talked a lot about the dominance of the centre bounce with Essendon, and they were getting field position and creating shots on goal. Then momentum swung a little bit. Port Adelaide addressed that at quarter time. They had control of the game almost beyond the quarter time break in terms of contested possessions, in terms of inside 50s. And in that third quarter, when Port Adelaide threatened to kick away, there were a couple of late goals from Essendon where that kept them within, I think, 1 point at three-quarter time. And then it became a game on. And Essendon, as we spoke about, they do have the ability to score quickly. They've got run, they've got drive, they've got X factors in Stringer and Draper, as we spoke about in that last quarter, look threatened to break the game open for Essendon. But to Port Adelaide's credit, I think they'll walk away wiping the sweat off their brow, breathing a sigh of relief that they got away with the win today after dominating on the score sheet in terms of shots on goal, but they just weren't able to capitalise and hit the scoreboard to put the game beyond doubt, probably at three-quarter time.
I mean, like you said, the game should have been well and truly over, at three-quarter time, and the inaccuracy honestly really could have cost them because Essendon kept coming and they have the ability to score really quickly. Even when we thought Port Adelaide had all the momentum, they'd get out and use that offensive run and carry that they've been known for this year. It's a real element of the game that they've brought in with Scott. It's been super impressive. I think Essendon will hold their head high. They'll be obviously really disappointed not to come away with the 4 points. But to Port Adelaide's credit, to stick at it. I mean, when the scoreboard's against you, that can build up that pressure like we kind of spoke about throughout the game. But they kept coming. I thought across the whole game, Zach Butters was enormous. Yep. His contested possessions are really important, and it's his clearance work that probably goes unnoticed. But then Connor Rosie, he probably, when he snapped that goal, that's when Port Adelaide really took off and run home with the win.
incredible performance.
Yep.
Edge of your seat stuff at the Adelaide Oval. It really felt like Essendon was going to get there, and a large portion of that was Sam Draper.
Yeah.
He was so impressive this afternoon, and Port Adelaide now may have to rethink that ruck combination. Obviously, Lycett in the twos at the moment. It felt like over the last couple of weeks that having Finlayson and Teakle in there was actually helping them win clearances, but obviously against a tall Timber who's really effective with his hit-outs, it exposed them a bit.
Look, it did, and I know you probably came across, or I probably came across quite critical of Teakle, and by no stretch am I wanting to go down the path of bagging a young player, but he is young, he is inexperienced, and the reality is it takes time for these young, tall guys to develop into quality ruckmen because they're up against these beasts that have been in the game a long time. Their bodies are physically mature. And as I said, what Essendon were allowed to get off, or what it enabled them to get off the ruck dominance, was a midfield group at ground level that could run and be really proactive at the stoppage and get first look and get really good looks inside their forward 50, which they were able to do regularly in that first quarter.
And to Port Adelaide's credit, I think, Bassett spoke about it. They could see that the centre bounce was a real area that they needed to improve. And not only with Teakle, I guess, coming in and out of it, Finlayson came in, but it was the ability to midfielders to adapt at the Essendon's dominance, because not only was Draper dominant in there, Phillips was enormous too. So I think for the midfielders to adapt and make that look better for Port Adelaide was a really important in the last half more so.
I love adapt. I think the knock on Ken Hinkley and Port Adelaide in the past is they've had one wood and that's it. And this season they've felt incredibly versatile, and we've seen that the past month. They just keep chopping and changing to fit what their opponent is doing.
We see Jonas goes off, Darcy Byrne-Jones goes back. So, you've got Jason Horne-Francis playing forward, he goes in the midfield. Zach Butters can play for, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, their ability to have players play across the whole ground. It gets Ken Hinkley to be able to adapt when things happen on game day.
Just a moment there as Brad Scott walking across to the visitors' change rooms, and he actually paused, looked around, found Ken Hinkley, went across to him, said congratulations. Obviously they had a word for 30 seconds, a minute, just to catch up, and then off he went. But very, very nice moment, if you like, within the situation that Brad Scott finds himself in a game like that.
Well, he's probably thinking, the game really should have been put away. I mean, they've kicked 12 goals, 20. So I know that Essendon kept coming, and that's a credit to themselves in belief that their offence stacks up. But, that could have been a different game. And like we said, Port well and truly should have won that by 5 to 10 goals.
And I think the sign of a good side, which Port Adelaide currently are, even just based on win-loss, and they've won the last 5 games on the trot, is winning those games. And I'm not sure what the margin actually blew out to in that second or third quarter, but they looked under siege and they were unable to hit the scoreboard and close that margin. But to their credit, and as I said, a sign of a really good side that's maturing nicely to be able to get away with a win, even though they were under the pump late.
21 points was the game high margin at the start of the second term.
Yep.
So Bombers kicked the first, and then that was really when Port Adelaide started to get into it, and they kept missing, but they had a run of 6 scoring shots out of the 7 that was in that second term, and then they did the same in the third term. They went on this run of 12 of 13, and it was enough to really put the game almost to bed, or that inaccuracy just kept the door open slightly. What it does mean for the Port Adelaide Football Club is that this next month is really tantalising. North Melbourne next Saturday, obviously Melbourne on the Friday night's a big test, and then Richmond and Hawthorn after that. You've got a team that at the moment is inside the top 4, and St Kilda probably defeat North Melbourne later today and take that spot back. But Port Adelaide's next month, it feels like it's a chance for them to really impose themselves on the competition.
And I reckon even further to that, Aaron, how does the narrative look around Ken Hinkley if they win 3 of the next 4?
And they're sitting at, 9 wins, 3 losses. It'd be massive.
And probably sitting in the top 4. So, watch this space.
Port winners by 5 points at the Adelaide Oval. They had a bit of rain earlier today, but for the most part it was cold and sunny. They got over the line in a high-scoring affair. 12-20-92 to 13-9-87 in front of 36,247. Obviously, there is a game on at the MCG at the moment, quarter time there between Collingwood and Sydney. The Pies up by 15 points. We'll take you there in a moment. We're just going to get some reaction, obviously, from the rooms where Jack Paqueta is standing by as Port Adelaide makes its way downstairs. That being said, Jack, there's a fair few players who are still out here on the ground. Junior Rioli can't seem to get away from the punters, so the song may have to be without him.
They're very slowly making their way in, led by the injured Tom Jonas, who was subbed out of the game with a sore chest. Ken Hinkley, when he came in, got a round of applause by all the family and friends here inside the rooms. All the SANFL players are here as well, lining around. They're slowly making his way in. No sign of Junior Rioli.
He's just running in now, but he just couldn't get away from all the fans.
Oh, he's just too popular after those last two behinds there. Very handy points. But they are starting this song. Jeremy Finlayson's running in late, so they are just having to stall. He's still not in here. So they're just, yeah, here he is now. He's finally joined in the circle. Let's have a listen. So there we have it. Port Adelaide beating Essendon by 5 points. That's 5 wins in a row, and it has them in the top 4.
Nice to see Jeremy Finlayson's daughter as part of the huddle as well, Jack, down there amongst the squad, and obviously a fair bit of feeling in there. Sophia, part of the club song there for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Winners by 5 points over the Bombers, 5 in a row, and they move to 6-2, and at least temporarily inside the top 4. For the Bombers, Ebbs, 4-4, and as I mentioned in the siren call, they've been pretty gallant the last couple of weeks, but just not enough. And that's going to be the difference possibly between them being a top 8 side and missing out on finals.
Yeah, and how long can you say it's not enough, or they're close, we're nearly there, we're in games? There comes a point of time where wins really count, and the top 8, like they've got players there. I mean, Darcy Parish was prolific with 37, Zach Merritt with 28, Mason Redmond, probably not his best game, but they've got players. I mean, Sam Draper's just oozing with confidence, and he probably just needs a few teammates to come along with him. But I mean, they've got a new coach. They've had a bit of disruption over the past couple of years, so it can always be hard. But I think they probably need to start winning games. Instead of having that pressure on them just being in games. You don't really want to be known for a team to show some promise. I'm sure they'll get there. Their offensive game stacks up against the best, but unfortunately the past month they've been playing the absolute best in the top 4 teams. So now they'll take confidence out of today. They stuck with it. I mean, Port come away with the win, but I think some promising signs for the Bombers.
Can you play those same comments back for Adelaide as well? Another one of those sides in that same situation?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but it does get frustrating. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at 12-20. I'm not sure what the boys kicked last week, but it's frustrating. And even with Port Adelaide today, like you speak about Charlie kicking goals, that's what you paid for. Some of these goals that people are the players are missing, they train, but sometimes it's not your day, and 12-20's not the best. But yeah, fans want to see their team win. Adelaide, we're showing some signs of promise, but I want to see them winning and get the 4 points. But God, they nearly had it at some points yesterday, but Cat's too strong.
It's a funny narrative in that you look at Adelaide's form and you say they're a young team on the rise and they've done very well to compete with the best. And then we look at the Bombers, who only have 4 players today 30 years old. So they're pretty young as well. And they've lost their last 3, most of them by close margins. And we say, they're probably worse off than the Adelaide Footy Club, when they're probably around the same mark.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I think Brad Scott has sort of positioned the narrative around his side quite nicely, saying we're building. So I dare say that will be the message in the post-game, that we've seen some good signs, we're developing our side, we've got young players, we've got a spattering of older guys that can contribute. But yeah, look, I guess it's one of those things from a Bombers point of view. They have improved from last year. Obviously, the drama around Rutten going and getting a new coach in. So they do look better, and they are developing. And having said that, they've also played, as we said, was it Geelong? They played Collingwood and they played Port Adelaide the last 3 games. So I'm not sure what's their win-loss at the moment.
4-4.
4-4. So I reckon if you said at the start of the year we'll be 4-4 with that draw, as an Essendon supporter, I reckon you'd be reasonably happy.
Well, the next month too, Brisbane. Obviously, that's going to be difficult when they travel to play Brisbane. And then they've got Richmond, West Coast and North Melbourne. Very, very winnable games, you would say.
Yeah, I agree. I know you're giving me a bit of grief there, Crossy, but the Tigers are no imposing threat right now. So the Bombers will certainly eye up that Dreamtime game as the kickstarter of hopefully a run of wins for them. So
I think they have a bit of leeway, a bit of grace in terms of how they're performing at the moment. Port Adelaide's on the other end of the scale where they have to win these games that they're close and they won today.
Yeah, I like the word improving though. Like, I mean, as a team, as outsiders, as fans, and as media, when you can actually see the game plan stack up, the boys improving. And you can see that, and they're not going backwards. They've just actually been really challenged amongst the best teams over the past month. And I'm sure later on in the year, when the fixture evens out in terms of who they'll play, they'll probably stack up those wins. But they are improving, and when they're on, it's exciting footy, and one's fans want to watch.
Yeah, it's the same for Port Adelaide too, isn't it? Like they've come through a tough period. They've been challenged a couple of times. They've won this afternoon when they could easily perhaps have dropped it because of that poor goal kicking. And they've won a couple of games like that as they move forward. That's obviously what Ken Hinkley wants to see.
Winning ugly can be the sign of a great side. So, good job for the Port Adelaide Football Club. We're hoping to head down into the rooms and chat to Zach Butters in a moment. If you do want to jump straight over to the MCG game, hit the AFL button on the ABC Listen app. The second term is underway there. Collingwood up by 14 points. 3-5-23 to 139. So we'll head down to Jack in a moment. For our listeners on the ABC Listen app on the extra stream, you're about to depart us in 3 minutes' time. You'll have a short break, and then in an hour's time at 4:30 Eastern, you'll get the start of North Melbourne and St Kilda, which everyone else will miss out on because they'll be at the MCG. So if you do want to hear the Docklands game, just stay tuned on the extra button for the start of that between St Kilda and North Melbourne. Before they depart, Josh and Ebbs, who drew the short straw about the votes?
I think I did.
Yeah, you go for it.
I've got 3 sets of eyes.
Josh, what do you got?
Well, I've given 1 vote to Parrish. I thought, again, through weighted numbers, he's had 37 disposals, 22 contested possessions and 9 clearance. A pretty good day for Parrish. 2 votes to Rosie, who I thought was outstanding again in terms of his work rate, intent around the footy, his composure with the ball. Ended up with 30 disposals, 13 of those contested, and had 2 clearances. But I thought the absolute standout from go to woe was Zach Butters. I thought his ability to pressure the opposition, win that contested ball, show physicality beyond his stature. I thought he was absolutely outstanding and hugely influential in the result going Port Adelaide's way. He ended up with 28 disposals, 7 clearances, and 13 of his 28 touches were contested. So I thought he was outstanding.
And he's been building into the year as well. He had the AC joint injury in the pre-season. His first 3 games, he was barely out there. And now it's clear the past fortnight, even the past month, I mean, he headed into this game averaging 27 touches in his last 4. So he's back to his best.
He is back to his best. And I think it's another thing as well. And I guess I've been a strong advocate for Travis Boak to keep playing inside. The future's good for Port Adelaide in terms of Rosie, and you've got Drew, you've got Zach Butters, you've got other guys, Horn Francis, that can roll through there as well. So they're not as reliant on Boak anymore, and these guys are standing up and carrying the workload, which is really good news for Port Adelaide.
So 3 to Butters, 2 to Rosie, 1 to Parrish. Port Adelaide winners by 5 points at the Adelaide Oval, 12-20-92 to 13-9-87. Puts the Power temporarily in the top 4. The Bombers just missing out on the 8 and 9th. Essendon 4-4, Port 6-2. Rosie had 30 touches and a goal in the end. Zach Butters finished with 28 touches, leading goal scorers for the Port Adelaide Football Club. They really shared the load tonight. 2 to Rioli, Dixon and Burne-Jones, and singles to Palpepper, Marshall, Boak, Finlayson, Rosie and McEntee. Meanwhile, for the Bombers, 2 to Langford, Wiedemann, Perkins, and singles to Caldwell, Merritt, Hobbs, Stringer, McDonald, Tippenwoody, and Menzies. For our listeners on the ABC Extra stream, you're about to depart us, and then in an hour's time, you will hear North Melbourne and St Kilda from the Docklands. If you do want to hear the MCG game between Collingwood and Sydney, just flip over on the AFL button on the ABC Listen app. Otherwise, it's bye for now with Port Adelaide winners by 5.